The war-torn rivermouth of the Blackwater still steamed with wildfire's lurid fumes when the banners of the crowned stag rose over the shattered gatehouse. Ash drifted across the water like black snow, settling in silent layers upon the smoking hulks of Lannister galleys and the drowned wreckage of Lord Paxter Redwine's fleet. It was an hour before dawn, yet the sky to the east already blushed red, as though the gods themselves had kindled a pyre for a dying realm. In the bay's cold shallows, a single ship's bell tolled once, twice, then fell forever silent, swallowed by the tide. On the ramparts of King's Landing the air was clogged with burnt pitch, broken stone, and the copper tang of blood. The defenders who had not fled or died in the night's chaos now knelt in trembling rows beneath the spears of the Stormlander vanguard. Through battered iron gates, the first columns of King Stannis' army marched into the city while the populace watched from shuttered windows, too spent by terror to cheer or jeer. Each step of mailed boot upon cobblestone rang like judgment. At the head of that dour procession rode Ser Davos Seaworth, his cloak torn and his beard singed, but his gray eyes clear. Beside him walked Melisandre of Ashai, scarlet silks unspoiled by smoke, her expression serene as sunrise. Behind them came Lord Valerion, his son Montrese bearing the white banner of surrender captured from the last defenders upon the Gate of the Gods. The gold lion of Lannister and the golden rose of Tyrell lay trampled together in the mud. Far above, in the Tower of the Hand, Cersei Lannister watched the enemy's advance in frozen disbelief. She had sat the night in Maegor's holdfast with Tommen clutched against her, Myrcella weeping softly at her feet, and Ser Meryn standing mute as a tomb. Yet no rescue rode from the west, no glitter of Tyrell banners on the Rose Road, no lions of Casterly Rock upon the river. Her father's promised army had not broken Stannis in the field. Instead, the king's fleet, augmented by a chain she herself had scorned, had severed the Redwine fleet from escape, while Davos Seaworth's smugglers' cunning guided the fiery assault that turned the Blackwater into a grave. They had underestimated the Baratheons' resolve, believing wildfire and hunger would suffice. They had failed. Now Queen Regent and children waited for Stannis' hand. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Within the Red Keep's throne room, the Iron Throne crouched like a fanged beast, forged of 1,000 blades and the pride of a conqueror long dead. No king had mounted those jagged steps in half a year. Joffrey's charred body lay twisted on the quay after the chain snapped his flagship in two, and now the hall echoed with hammer and saw as Stormlander smiths drove new braces into broken doors. Breathless pages scrubbed blood from the marble floor, but red stains remained like ghosts. When the last of the prisoners had been marched to the dungeons and the trebuchets on Aegon's high hill silenced, Stannis Baratheon came. He entered not as a triumphant conqueror but as a man fulfilling a duty he had long claimed was his by right. His cloak of Baratheon black rippled behind him, trimmed not in sable but plain wool. He wore no crown yet. The one hammered from the antlers of a stag rested still upon Dragonstone. Instead his brow bore only sweat, his armor only dents. The realm's new king looked every inch a soldier. The throng that filled the throne room parted without command, awestruck by the grim force of his presence. Davos halted at the base of the dais, one knee sinking onto stone. Melisandre remained standing, eyes glowing in torchlight. Lords Valerion, Celtigar, Bar Emin, Penrose, and Estermont formed a crescent behind them, bannermen bound to Dragonstone's cause. Opposite them stood men of the city. Ser Adam Marbrand in ruined crimson cloaks, Lord Giles Rosby coughing into a silk sleeve, stooped Grand Maester Pycelle, and the High Septon flanked by silent Septons in crystal armor scraped by ash. Stannis climbed the steps, 7 steps, one for each god he had spurned. At the last, he turned to face the hall. Silence descended, thick as the smoke still clinging to his pauldrons. "My lords," he said, voice hoarse from command but strong. "The usurpers are cast down. The false boy is slain, his mother and brothers surrendered. The realm is again in rightful hands." A murmur rippled along the columns. Relief in some, dread in others. "Let all here bear witness," Stannis continued. "By blood and law I am the firstborn son of Lord Steffan Baratheon, brother of King Robert, and heir after his children, illegitimate whelps whose mother and her lovers deceived the realm. I have claimed my throne with steel and with fire. Any who dispute my right may speak now, or be forever silent under my justice."
No soul spoke.
The chandeliers creaked overhead. "Then kneel," Stannis commanded. Pycelle sank slow, joints popping. Lord Giles bowed with a rattling cough. Even Ser Adam, fierce as a red lion, lowered his head. Only the High Septon hesitated, hands trembling. One by one, great men of Westeros bent knees. Stannis looked upon them as stone might look upon water, unmoved. "Rise as subjects," he said. "Serve me as you once served my brother. Kneelers shall be rewarded. Those who would stand against their king will find mercy only in death." He descended, turned, and sat upon the iron throne. Metal screamed as he settled, cutting through his leather without ceremony. Blood welled on his palm. Stannis did not flinch. Instead, he pressed the bleeding hand to the sword ridge at his side as though sealing an oath in flesh. At that moment, the broad doors banged open. In walked Ser Axel Florent, leading a column of guards escorting the captives. Cersei Lannister in torn green velvet, Myrcella veiled and shaking, Tommen too young to understand, and Ser Meryn Trant bound with chains about his wrists. Cersei's emerald eyes burned with hatred, but fear trembled there too. Axel forced her to kneel. "Your Grace," he said to Stannis, "King's Landing is yours. What is your will?" Stannis's jaw clenched. He surveyed the prisoners, lingering upon Cersei. "Justice." Melisandre's ruby glowed deep scarlet. The queen's face blanched, yet Stannis spoke no more of their fate. "Return them to Maegor's Holdfast," he ordered. "Confine them in suites fit for royalty. They will stand trial before the realm. Tyrion Lannister shall share their cell when he is taken." Cersei spat crimson. "You sit a throne of stolen iron, Baratheon." "Silence," Stannis said, and she lost her voice beneath the weight of it. When the captives were gone, he turned to the assembly. "Dawn approaches. At first light, I will address the common folk from the steps of the September of Baelor. The city has suffered. Grain stores shall be opened. Let no child starve this day." His eyes swept lords and maesters alike. "Davos Seaworth is hand of the king." The smuggler's eyes widened. Around him nobles bristled, yet none dared speak. Stannis's will was law. Thus ended the first hour of King Stannis Baratheon's reign. Not with jubilant fanfare, but with vows, blood, and the smoke of a dying night curling about the cold blades of the Iron Throne. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Sunrise painted the city in somber gold. From the September's wide marble stair, Stannis addressed a sea of weary faces. Beside him stood Davos in a mottled cloak of black and green, Melisandre in scarlet radiance, Lord Valerion bearing the stag and flaming heart standard of the king's new faith. Bells tolled above, their chimes echoing through vaults still scarred by wildfire. "My people," Stannis began, voice echoing over the square. "The night is past. Your true king sits the throne." Some cheered. Others watched with hollow eyes, waiting to see if this man would be kinder than the last. Stannis made no promises of mercy. "Laws broken in war must be mended in peace," he said instead. "Those who looted shall return what they stole. Those who killed without honor shall pay blood for blood. Yet the hungry will eat. The fearful will find protection beneath my rule. I ask no oaths but loyalty to crown and realm." He lifted his hand, the blood from the throne still fresh upon it, and the square fell silent. "Know this, justice is a cold blade, and I do not fear to wield it. But justice shall be even-handed. Lords who prey upon their small folk will answer as swiftly as thieves who prey upon merchants. In the sight of gods new and old, I swear to stand for the law." Melisandre raised her arms, scarlet sleeves billowing. "Behold the prince who was promised," she proclaimed, voice ringing clear. "The Lord of Light has sent him to cast down false kings and end the long night." Some in the crowd crossed themselves. Others murmured uneasily. Stannis did not rebuke her, but neither did he echo the prophecy. Instead, he spoke once more. You have seen fire ravage this city. You have seen the price of false kings and lax justice. With me you shall see rebuilders' hammers ring as loud as war drums." He paused. "I will rule and I will defend you. That is my promise." He turned away, leaving Davos to direct the Stormlanders in distributing grain carts. It was not a speech for song, but for a realm bled white by war it was enough. Hope flickered, faint yet alive. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Beyond the walls the realm reeled. At Harrenhal, Roose Bolton weighed new alliances while the Riverlords whispered of a stag crowned in smoke. The phrase remembered oaths, fingers drumming on banquet boards. In Highgarden, Lady Olenna received bedraggled riders bearing tidings of Tyrell ships burned in the Blackwater and Mace's banners shattered at Bitterbridge by crown-loyal foot. Fury warred with calculation in her sharp eyes. The Reach had gambled and lost. Now the Queen of Thorns considered how best to salvage victory from ruin. Farther south, at Sunspear, Prince Doran Martell learned of his niece's death and the Mountain's trial still undone. Yet Stannis' triumph kindled old embers. A husband's crown for Aerion? A chance at vengeance? The Dornish prince set aside his gouty pain and summoned scrollmakers. In the north, ravens reached Robb Stark's host. King Stannis now held the capital. The Lannisters were broken. The young wolf camped outside the ruins of Moat Cailin, snow swirling over tents, and felt the weight of a shifting board. His mother's conjectures about Baratheon honor and Lannister treachery were proven. Yet to bend the knee would forsake the crowns of the North and Trident. To stand alone meant fighting two wars. Night gathered beyond the wall, while distant dragons stirred across the sea. Thus across 7 kingdoms, maesters cut fresh quills. War did not end with one battle's blaze. It only changed its shape. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Days passed. King Stannis held court each dawn in the solar once kept for Joffrey's cruel japes. Petitions poured in. Merchants seeking reparations, smiths canvassing for coin to rebuild, refugees pleading for bread. Cersei and her children remained confined in Maegor's Holdfast, under guard by careful knights who feared Queenslayer assassins in every shadow. Stannis ordered them fed, but limited. "Let them taste the hunger their pride inflicted upon this city," he said to Davos. Tyrion Lannister eluded capture, vanishing through Varys' tunnels the night the chain fell. "Spiders are hard to squash," Davos remarked. Stannis agreed. Though his frown deepened each morning, the dwarf remained at large. On the city's far shore, the hulking wrecks of wildfire-clad ships still glowed green beneath moonlight. Laborers dredged channels for new piers while chainsmiths hammered fresh links under Ser Gendry Rivers' keen gaze. Bastard of King Robert, raised to lordship by royal decree. Some whispered this base-born knight resembled his father uncannily. Others whispered he resembled a threat. The small council reformed. Davos's hand, Maester Pylus recalled from Dragonstone since Pycelle's frailty could not be hidden. Ser Roland Storm appointed Master of Laws, his stern demeanor suited to the task. Salador San accepted Master of Ships after long nights of haggling over coin and titles. A seat remained empty for a Lord of Coin, until Ser Axel suggested Ser Eamon Estermont. But Stannis only scowled and said coin could wait until the realm's coffers ceased bleeding. Melisandre claimed no chair, yet her presence loomed over every council. She spoke little, but the red ruby at her throat pulsed softly whenever new tidings arrived, as though drinking secret truths. One evening, as ravens cawed above the towers, Davos approached Stannis upon the ramparts. Below them, the city shivered in early winter's chill. "Your Grace," said the hand, "supplies dwindle. If the Reach will not send grain, we must harvest from the Riverlands or buy from Bravos at dear cost." Stannis stared eastward where the narrow sea shimmered. "I won a kingdom of ashes. Marjorie Tyrell was to wed Joffrey. Now her father will weigh which king next to flatter. He will bargain dear. Half the realm may starve while lords bargain," Davos warned. Stannis' gaze cut like drawn steel. "Then we seize what we require," he declared. "Robert fed the realm with conquest. I will feed it with order." "And the North?" Davos asked. "Robb Stark commands many swords. The boy is Lord of Winter Snows, Not of summer fields, Stannis said. Let him keep his crown, if he swears fealty and sends south the fish of the trident. Else he will learn winter more keenly. Davos swallowed unease. Peace may be bought cheaper than war, sire. Peace is bought with justice, Stannis answered. When the realm accepts rightful rule, peace will bloom. Melisandre stepped from shadow. The Lord's work is not yet done, Davos Seaworth. Darkness gathers in the far north. The king must march. March north, while the Reach starves us, while Tywin Lannister rallies. Davos shook his head. We need grain, ships, coin. We need light against darkness, Melisandre insisted softly, turning scarlet gaze upon Stannis. A sword of fire born anew in the cold. Davos saw the king's jaw tighten. We will do what duty demands, Stannis said. Yet beneath the stoicism lingered uncertainty, as if he glimpsed, for an instant, the abyss between law and prophecy. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Autumn bled into winter. Snowflakes drifted over the city for the first time in a decade, settling upon cracked rooftops and the broken gargoyles of the dragon pit. Fires burned in every hearth, their smoke mingling with the ever-present scent of charred pitch. Still, order returned slowly. Thieves were hanged, bakers were paid double for honest loaves, and patrols of Stormlander spearmen walked the alleys where gold cloaks once extorted coin. In Flea Bottom, small folk huddled around rude braziers, telling tales of the one-eared king who took a throne of swords because the crown was his by right, and of the red woman whose ruby could drink men's sins. Some feared the fiery god she preached. Others welcomed any god who gave them bread. The faith militant had yet to rise, though the High Septon muttered of abominations. But with each passing day, prayers to Lawler flickered alongside the Seven's candles. Yet forces stirred beyond walls. A column of gnarled riders appeared on the Rose Road, Knights of the Reach under Lady Olenna's banner, bearing peace terms gilded by sweet words. Grain for mercy, alliance by marriage, Marjorie to Stannis or his chosen heir. Stannis scoffed at marriage, but grain he needed. The Queen of Thorns' quills scratched new drafts, offering coin, troops, even her son's loyalty if Cersei and her children were spared. Let the queen end queenly in exile perhaps, she suggested, and the Reach will feed King's Landing. Davos argued clemency. Stannis weighed justice. Melisandre warned that the Lannister woman was a shadow that would darken any place she fled. Her death lights the path, she whispered. In the dungeons, Cersei raged behind silken chains. Each day guards found wineskins emptied, goblets shattered, slurs etched into the walls with broken glass. Myrcella sang to keep her brother calm, their voices echoing through corridors of cold stone. One night, the queen attempted flight. A bribed jailer, a smuggled dagger, a hidden passage. Davos himself intercepted them near the base of a spiral stair. The jailer died. Cersei stood trembling, blade to Tommen's throat, daring Davos to approach. Yet when Stormlander archers appeared, bows drawn, she surrendered, eyes burning with despair. That failed escape sealed her fate. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. The trial of Cersei of House Lannister, Queen Regent, took place in the Great Hall before Lords of the Realm. Grand Maester Pycelle, under oath, testified to the bastardy of her children. Septon Eustace recounted confessions of adultery whispered behind Septon screens. Ser Lancel, gaunt and pale, admitted to sins of the flesh. Letters seized in Maegor's apartments bore her seal, commanding wildfire caches to be placed beneath the city, threatening to burn it rather than surrender. Cersei denied nothing. Yes, she declared, voice sharp as Valyrian steel. I lay with my brother, I bore his sons. I would burn every rat in this cesspit of a city before bending knee to a peevish pretender with no kindness in his heart. You call it treason. I call it love. The hall reeled. Stannis' face remained carved stone. Verdict: guilty of high treason, adultery, incest, and the attempted murder of the city. Sentence: death by beheading, royal privilege to be carried out at dawn upon the steps of Baelor, that the realm witness justice. Lord Giles fainted. The High Septon pleaded clemency for the children. Stannis granted Tommen and Myrcella a choice. Take the Black or join a silent sisterhood in Old Town. Innocents pay no debt, he told them. Though Melisandre's eyes flared in disapproval, the children chose the Wall, perhaps envisioning an adventure. They were to ride north within the week, escorted by Ser Brienne of Tarth, newly sworn to Stannis' service. At dawn, the square filled once more. Davos stood beside the king, yet could not bear to watch as Stannis unsheathed Lightbringer. The sword Melisandre claimed glowed hot with the Lord's favor. Flames danced along its edge, whether by sorcery or oiled rag, and Cersei's jade eyes widened one last time before the blade fell. Her head rolled across marble. Crimson pooled where snowflakes melted. Some in the crowd gasped, some cheered. Melisandre whispered a prayer of thanks to her god. Thus the lioness died, and with her ended the last claim of the children she birthed in deceit. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. The execution rippled through Westeros like a thrown stone splashing in still water. Tywin Lannister, riding hard from the west with a ragged host, received word near Maidenpool. The icy calm he once wielded cracked. Witnesses spoke of his knuckles whitening upon the reins. He turned his army northward toward Harrenhal to seek new ground, perhaps even alliance with the young wolf, though Robb Stark spurned him. Lord Tywin's golden lions marched with vengeance burning, yet the realm's gold mines now funded a war against a king they could not easily besiege. In Riverrun's halls, Catelyn Stark shivered at news of Cersei's death, fearing for her daughters still missing. Yet whispers spoke that Sansa had escaped the city's fall, fleeing in the chaos, aided by a jester with a mockingbird brooch. Littlefinger's schemes bloomed like unseen weeds through the cracks of power. At Storm's End, the garrison lit beacons in triumph. At Dragonstone, bells rang. Yet in the darkened chambers of the Night's Watch, Lord Commander Jeor Mormont read the same raven scroll and sighed. A crown south, he murmured, and a gathering storm north. The realm feasts on its own heart while winter comes. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. King Stannis prepared for that winter. Grain ships from the Arbor arrived under flags of truce. Lady Olenna's terms met. Marriage declined, but trading rights assured in exchange for moderate levies and safe passage home for surviving reachmen. Goldsmiths reminted stag coins to pay sell sales. Ironborn raids flared along the coast, yet Salador San's new royal fleet harried them back to Pike. But the true war waited beyond the wall. Melisandre spoke of a darkness known only to dust-plastered tomes. Cold winds rise, she said to the small council, eyes bright as candle flame. The dead move at the bidding of an ancient enemy. Fire is life, ice is death. Your grace must ride north, for only a king's blood and a sword of fire may halt the shadow. Davos protested, the realm bleeds still. March north and Tywin will strike our flank. Stannis weighed their words as he weighed all burdens. At last he spoke. If darkness falls, it will swallow rich and poor alike. The realm cannot know peace while doom gathers. The north is duty's road. He turned to Davos. You will remain in King's Landing. Rule in my stead. Hold the city firm. Davos's heart sank, yet he bowed. Your grace commands. Thus, as the New Year's first snows choked the King's Road, Stannis Baratheon mustered 5,000 hard veterans. Stormlanders who fought on the walls, Dragonstone men hardened by siege, Sell-sails sworn for coin, and set forth. Lightbringer burned at his hip. Behind him rode Melisandre, red cloak streaming. Beside him Lord Davos, though the hand would soon turn back. Among the ranks marched the one-time Smith Gendry, now Lord of the Blackwater, bearing a hammer larger than any man's sense. The king left King's Landing in orderly quiet. No festival, no feasts. A city repaired itself while its king rode to face a threat few believed. Children played in alleys where ash once choked lungs. Priests of R'hllor kindled nightly fires upon the banks, teaching songs of light. In the September of Baelor, candles burned for the soul of Cersei Lannister, though none dared name the sin. On a frostbitten morning, Davos watched the last banners vanish beyond the northern horizon. He felt the weight of a crown not on his brow but upon his shoulders. Justice must hold, Grain must flow, traitors must fear. Above all, the realm must endure. And somewhere in the haunted forest, beneath a sky like black glass, the others listened to the howling wind and prepared to march south. The Game of Thrones had birthed a new king, stern, unyielding, aflame with destiny. And destiny would soon be tested by ice. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Almost equals 60,000 characters. First installment. Continue in next prompt. Snow swallowed sound as the king's column pressed north along the King's Road. Hooves sank to the fetlocks in drifts that came higher each dawn, and the breath of man and mount alike drifted away as pale banners on the wind. Above them the sky hung iron-gray and heavy, but Lightbringer's ember glow painted shards of crimson across frost-rimmed helms whenever Stannis drew the blade to cut away fallen branches or to signal the vanguard. He slept seldom, rose before trumpets, and rode at the fore no matter how deep the chill. When grooms begged him to take shelter from a squall, he spat ice from his beard and answered, "A king does not hide from his own war." Melisandre rode close behind, untroubled by the cold. Snow melted on her scarlet silks as soon as it touched, steam curling from her sleeves. Some knights whispered she carried summer in her blood. Others swore she carried hellfire. At night she gathered the men about braziers of pitch and sang in the tongue of Ass-High while sparks leapt like fire gnats. The Stormlanders muttered that the songs kept fingers from blackening, so they listened though they did not understand the words. Lord Gendry, wielding the great warhammer once borne by King Robert, led a rear guard of Sellswords and Dragonstone archers. The bastard had grown a beard to match the frost, but the blunt kindness in his blue eyes softened the fear many held for the tall Smith Lord. His men began calling him the Hammer of Winter, though he laughed and said the only hammer was steel, not song. By the feast of the winter's eve they reached the ruins of Queenscrown, its old and collapsed beneath ice-laden boughs. Scouts reported bandits prowling in the forests, starved small folk who'd fled the War of Five Kings to hunt deer and darker meat. Stannis ordered no torches that night. The column bivouacked in silence, cooking oats over shield fires muffled with snow. Yet before dawn, an arrow hissed from the dark and took a sentry through the throat. The second shaft thudded into Ser Emincui's pauldron, but he lived. Stannis mounted while the dead man's blood was still steaming and led a cordon of riders into the pines. They found a ragged band, half boys, half old men, gaunt as wraiths, huddled around a stolen stew pot. They never raised weapons. Even so, the knights wished to string them to branches as a warning. Stannis dismounted, took one look at their frost-bitten feet, then ordered bread from the baggage. "Feed them," he told Ser Roland. "Then clap irons and march them with us. If they lift steel again, they die. Else they serve the wall for their crimes." None dared argue. Justice, he had said, would be even-handed. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. South, in King's Landing, Davos felt winter too, though his came in the chill of parchment. Each raven bore frost upon its wings. Tywin's host had linked with remnants of the Westerland's bannermen at Harrenhal. Mace Tyrell drilled 30,000 at Bitterbridge while grain convoys sailed to Old Town instead of the capital. Balon Greyjoy threatened Gulltown. And in the Vale, Littlefinger's intrigues tangled with bronze yields and iron loyalties alike. The hand read every scroll by guttering candle, then shaped replies in plain, hard words. He opened the gates to Septon soup wagons and forbade red priests to bar their passage. For each sermon Lawler gained, a prayer to the Seven was heard beside it. When gold fell short, he suborned the Master Armorer's Guild to mint copper-stag pennies. The people called them onions after the smuggler king's hand, and used them to pay bricklayers rebuilding the fish market quay. Trust, Davos reckoned, was a coin dearer than gold. Yet even trust frayed. Pycelle died in his sleep one fog-bound morning. Quietly, yet some whispered of shadows. The High Septon protested the rise of Lawleress red chapels, calling them heresy. He was found strangled in the black cells 2 days later, and the faith named a new shepherd more pliable. Davos's indignation burst in council. Ser Axel sneered that gods could not share pillows, only thrones. Lord Son yawned and asked what price the faith would pay for peace. Davos demanded inquiry. Stannis, by Raven, answered only, "Find truth, meet justice." But truth hid like a mouse beneath the eaves of power, and justice's blade dulled when swung against unseen foes. Letters from Salador San grew thick with complaint. Tyrell galleys harassed his patrols, and the Arbor's wine flagged his sailors' loyalty. Still, the Lysine Cellsail remained. For coin and for curiosities he claimed Melisandre owed him. "A promise of red silk secrets," he wrote, "and the chance to see a sword of living fire when darkness comes to the sea." Davos replied that promises were the Queen's purview, but coin he could manage. Just each dawn, Ser Loras Tyrell's outriders probed the Gold Road. Each dusk, Davos's scouts reported their distance. 5 leagues, then 4, then 5 again. A dance of spears. Yet Davos would not order sorties beyond city walls. "The king rode north," he told Lord Gendry's steward. "So the law we keep here must be stronger than any sword we break outside." And he prayed the words were true. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At Castle Black, Black brothers shivered atop their ancient wall as a thin horn blast drifted from the snow-choked forest. First rang once, then again, followed by a third note that froze marrow. White shadows moved between trees, dead men walking. Jeor Mormont mustered 200, but the White Walkers came with 10 times dead things. Spears of ice shattered steel, pale spiders large as hounds wove webs of hoarfrost. Yet flame held them, torches, pitch pots, and the brothers' resolve. Every hour another corpse joined the ranks of the enemy or burned to ash at the base of the wall. When ravens flew south over Stannis' column, they carried desperate calls. "Come with fire, else all burns in cold." Stannis pressed harder. Men fell, horses foundered, but the king refused rest till they made the king's road meet the gift. There, at a village of collapsed barns called Mole's Town, he met survivors fleeing the giant-haunted woods. Women with cheeks cracked open by cold, babes quiet as stones, an old man who said the wildlings had broken upon the wall days before the dead appeared. "Mance Rayder came with giants," the man muttered, teeth clicking. "Went up the wall at night, king beyond the wall he was. But then the dead kings came, and we ran. Stannis raised him from the ditch." "Rest easy, grandfather," he said. "My fire will meet their frost." He ordered tents pitched for the refugees, shared the army's scant salt pork, and gave the old man a blanket of his own cloak cut in half. Melisandre warned that mercy squandered strength. He replied, "Strength without mercy is wind without sail." That night the Red Woman's ruby burned bright enough to cast wild shadows. In her tent she tossed powders into a bronze brazier, chanting soft as a lullaby. Smoke took shape of wolves, lions, krakens, sigils writhing, devouring one another until naught but a stag of shadow remained, crowned with flame. She called Stannis inside, bade him see the future. He saw only war, the wall blazing green with wildfire, giants shrieking in madness, kings armored in snow, and himself facing a heart of ice that wore his brother's face and beckoned with a blue hand. He staggered from the tent, Lightbringer gripped so tight its pommel cut his palm anew. On the dark hill he looked at the stars and whispered a name. Robert. Snow swallowed the sound. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At Winterfell's smoking ruins, Bolton banners snapped in frigid wind. Roose Bolton read deputy reports by moonlight, measuring the new king's march as one might measure a goose for roasting. Ramsay, his bastard, prowled the battlements with a pack of dogs, bored with flaying Theon Greyjoy and hungry for grander sport. Word of Stannis' approach set Ramsay's eyes alight. "Flay the stag and wear his hide," he laughed. "A crown of bone would suit me." Roose only murmured that a clever hunter does not bay before the trap is sprung. He wrote to Tywin, offering an anvil in the north if the lion's hammer struck from the south. Ravens winged away while grey men sharpened flensing knives below. Robb Stark, camped at Moat Cailin with what remained of Riverland's strength, learned of Bolton treachery and Baratheon arrival in the same heartbeat. He faced a bitter choice: march on Winterfell to avenge, risk collision with Stannis, or bend knee to the stag and seek common cause against the Boltons. His mother counseled alliance. Great John Umber swore he'd die before bowing to a kneeler king. Robb walked beneath the heart trees, recalled his father's words. Winter is coming, and we must stand together or die alone. And sent envoys north and south both, pledging swords to whichever lord proved the North's friend. 2 ravens, 1 hope, that the cold would take slower steps than men. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Tywin Lannister reached the crossroads inn with 20,000 banners crisp in bright winter sun. He found the signboard fallen, the walls abandoned, the hearth cold. He warmed his hands over a brazier as he read Lady Olenna's terse dispatch. Mace refuses further grain shipments until safety of reach caravans assured. Loras demands vengeance for Marjorie's slight. Highgarden counts cost in coin, not faith. Tywin ground parchment to embers. His daughter's headless ghost haunted every pause. His grandson Tommen rode to the wall in black. His son, the dwarf, vanished. Yet the lion's roar must not break. He summoned Kevin, drew a new map. If Stannis bled at the wall, the north would be ripe plunder. If Stannis prevailed, the reach must rise as shield or be struck next. A letter to Dorne offered courts and castles. Another to Frey promised Riverland's gold. A last, sealed in blood-red wax, went to the Iron Bank of Bravos. Coin wins long wars, he told Kevin, and war this shall be. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In Bravos, the first sword heard of a stag king riding into winter and shrugged. The Titan's roar echoed seaward. In Karth, warlocks murmured that the Black Comet's tail had not passed but merely curved back toward the world. Daenerys Stormborn, across the narrow sea in Meereen's throne room, received news that King's Landing had fallen to fire not dragon and wondered what manner of Iron Man could defeat wildfire with righteous flame. She promised herself she would learn, for soon she too would cross the water. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Stannis' army reached the wall beneath a sky bruised purple. Castle Black flashed lanterns in welcome, yet the gate stayed barred until Donal Noy himself shambled out, broad chest heaving. "We hold against death," he growled. "Come with what light you've brought." The portcullis rattled upward. Men gazed like ghosts at the host of banners. Crowned stag, flaming heart, triskele of the Valerians, a blacksmith's hammer upon green. Inside, Stannis found the brothers weary unto death, but not broken. Jon Snow, Ranger of the Watch, met him in the cold yard. Black hair rhymed, gray eyes wary. He knelt. "Your Grace, you come at our darkest hour." Stannis bid him rise. "It is ever my fate, I think." He scanned the yard. Giant spears stacked beside pitch barrels. Wildling prisoners huddled under blankets. Maester Aemon tending burns with trembling hands. The scene stank of smoke and blood. Stannis knew it well. Here law must stand or all fell. He convened council in the King's Tower, Jeor Mormont, Jon Snow, Samwell Tarly, Donal Noy, and Melisandre. They spread maps over ale-stained boards. "The others mass in the haunted forest," Mormont said, voice gravel. "The wildlings war with them marginally south of the Frostfangs. If they fall, we meet dead giants." Stannis' gauntlet traced the wall. "We strike them first, burn their nests, Lightbringer at the fore." He looked to Melisandre. "Will fire unmake them?" "The true fire," she said. "But we must seek the heart of their power, the Night Fort's black well, where shadows linger from before the wall was raised. There the cold king calls death to life. Slay him, and his army shatters. Then we ride at dawn," Stannis declared. "I go myself." Jon Snow stepped forward. "The Watch swore no part in king's wars, but this is not a war of crowns. Let me lead your van." Mormont agreed. Stannis' stern gaze appraised the boy. "You are Ned Stark's blood," he said. "Honor is said to run thick in those veins. Do not disappoint it." He granted Jon command of 200 Stormlander spears and every Castle Black Ranger fit to fight. That night, Melisandre climbed the wall alone and lit a great pyre of driftwood soaked in oil and orange powder. The flame rose in twisting pillars visible 30 leagues. Men swore, faces writhed within the conflagration. Some saw Stannis crowned in red light, others saw a stag consumed by wolves. Jon watched in silence, feeling warmth on one cheek and the walls cold on the other, balanced between two realms. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. The dawn assault thundered across the frozen lake east of the night fort. Giants, half-mad with fear of the dead, raged against ranks of armored veterans. Wildlings charged beside Stormlander men, bound by common need. Jon Snow led with Longclaw flashing silver. Gendry's hammer roared. Lightbringer blazed so bright the others flinched. Ice swords shattered when struck by Stannis' fire. Bodies burst into shards that steamed away, but the dead came in waves. Blue-eyed children crept beneath shields to slice hamstrings. Headless warriors fought on until burnt, and every slain comrade rose anew unless flesh was seared. Arrows tipped with dragonglass slowed them, yet fell short before the heart of winter magic. A tall figure in mail of pale mist riding a stallion formed of black ice. He carried no banner, needed none. The air itself grew colder in his wake, and frost spidered across steel. The ranks parted to reveal him to Stannis. King met king upon the lake's edge. Stannis dismounted, sword aflame, breath billowing. The other reined his mount, voiceless white smoke curling from a maw unseen beneath a crystalline helm. He pointed a spear of moon-pale glass. Lightbringer hissed as Stannis brought it to guard. He advanced one step. The lake cracked. Shouts thundered behind. Jon urging archers, giants flinging boulders, but the field narrowed to two. The other thrust. Stannis parried. The spear rang like a bell, frost leaping onto Stannis' vambraces. He countered low. Lightbringer met ice and burst into sparks that seared the lake, sending up jets of steam. Again spear lunged, again parry, again. Each clash made the ice groan. At last Stannis feinted high, cut low, severed the stallion's frozen fetlock. Beast and rider toppled. The other rose soundless, shards reforming about him. He seized Stannis' wrist. Ice syruped up the king's arm. Lightbringer flickered. Pain scored his sight. Melisandre's voice cried out from distant shore, words lost in wind. Stannis roared, summoned every ember of fury. Robert's laughter stolen, Renly's treason, Cersei's lies, wildfire stink. He poured them into one strike. Lightbringer blazed white-hot. The other's arm crackled, fissured, shattered. Stannis drove the sword through the frozen chest where a heart never beat. The figure froze solid, then exploded into a hail of crystals, dazzling and silent. Frost wind died. Across the lake, the dead keened, spasmed, and fell as corpses. The living blinked in stunned silence, then roared. Stannis wavered, smoke rising from scorched gauntlet. Jon reached him first, caught his elbow. "Your Grace." Stannis' mouth moved. No words came, only a rattling breath. Melisandre knelt, pressed ruby to his breastplate. Lightbringer's flame guttered, leaving only dull orange embers. "The battle is won," she whispered, "but the war burns on." Stannis looked to the vanished foe's shards, melting into water that steamed across the ice. Satisfaction did not touch his face, only grim purpose. He sheathed the cooling sword. "We hold the wall," he rasped, voice cracked. "But every wall needs men. Send ravens. Ropstak, Tywin, Tyrells, Dornish. I'll tell them winter is not stories." Jon Snow gazed east where sunrise painted the lake blood gold. "Will they believe? They will," Stannis vowed, "or they will die." He turned toward Castle Black. In his wake the ice bent but did not break, and the wind carried away the last sigh of the other to places beyond dawn. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. When ravens reached King's Landing with tidings of victory, Davos climbed the Tower of the Hand and wept in relief. Yet peace did not follow. Lady Olenna demanded proof before sending grain. Tywin declared the threat exaggerated. Roose Bolton marched south to Barrowton with flayed banners snapping. Balon's longships struck salt pans anew. Davos penned one missive after another, to Highgarden, offering marriage of Shireen Baratheon to Willis Tyrell. To Dorne, justice for Elaya's murder if they rode. To Greyjoys, recognition of Pike's sovereignty for fealty against the Night. Some letters flew, others fell lick. Stones in deep water. But in lonely chambers, Men reflected. Mace Tyrell studied a pale crystal hand delivered to Bitterbridge, proof smuggled by Salador's agents. He shivered. Kevin Lannister read a report that giants fought alongside men, and his sword arm trembled for the first time in 50 years. In Sunspear, Oberyn Martell traced the Shard's map and grinned at the prospect of vengeance on the Cold and the Lion both. Thus alliances began to warp, as iron in fire. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At the Wall, Stannis held court in the great hall rebuilt from timbers of weirwood and pine. He named Jon Snow Lord of Winterfell for service and Stark blood, though the youth balked. "I am sworn brother," Stannis answered. "The Wall needs friends in the south. Winterfell needs honor in the north." Jon asked a knight to think. The king granted it, but Melisandre watched him leave with eyes like coals. The Red Woman spoke to Stannis in shadows. "A king's blood won this dawn, yet more is needed. Wildfire will not suffice. Dragons must ride the storm." She spoke of Queen across the sea, mother of three. Stannis scowled. "I have no dragons. I have law." Melisandre only smiled. "Law is man's fire. Dragons are God's fire. You must meet hers, or be consumed by ice reborn." Stannis dismissed her. Alone, he stared at Lightbringer flickering in the hearth. The blade's glow had faded to a banked ember, but he felt its heat still sear his ribs. He wondered if the sword fed on faith or on doubt. He wondered what part of him had died with the other, and what had been born anew. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In the south, the snows began to melt as spring teased the land, but cold lingered in hearts. Robb Stark marched toward the neck, banners half-masted in grief for Winterfell. Tywin turned west, forging new pacts with Freys and Ironborn to crush Riverland rebels. Mace Tyrell rode east to parley with Davos, bringing grain barges and a daughter's smile. Across the sea, Daenerys gathered sails. And in a burned keep named Harrenhal, a man with many faces laughed softly and sharpened unseen blades. Winter had not ended. It had only drawn breath. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In darkness beneath the frostfangs, far from the broken king of ice, something older stirred. A heart of night, shattered stones where children of the forest once danced, pulsed with blue light again. The shards of the slain others seeped into earth, spreading like roots of frost. In that cold womb, fractured voices whispered, "One king has fallen, but winter has no need of crowns, only of cold and of endless night." The whisper crept on wind, down canyons and across frozen seas, until it brushed the wall and slipped beneath doors to chill the fires of men. Yet for now torches burned, and kings stood vigilant. So the tale moved onward, as all tales do, fire seeking kindling, ice seeking hollows, while men and women weighed swords against promises, and the realm waited to learn whether dawn would follow this brief, bloodlit dusk, or whether the long night had only begun to muster its true strength beyond the edge of sight. Almost equals 5,500 words. Second installment continues the saga. A pall of new-fallen snow muffled every sound within Castle Black's yard. Yet King Stannis heard the rasp of his own breath as though he stood alone upon a frozen plain. Dawn bled gray light across the wall's crest, glinting upon hoarfrost and half-melted icicles that dripped like the slow ticking of an hourglass. The pyres still smoldered, great heaps of charred bones and blackened armor piled outside the eastern gate where the slain of two armies had burned through the night. The air stank of pitch and seared flesh, but beneath that sharp scent lingered something older and stranger. A tang of winter magic broken, an echo of cold too deep for flesh to name. Stannis watched sparks swirl up the chimney of the king's tower until the wind devoured them against the indigo sky. He had slept scarcely an hour since the battle. Even now, weariness tugged at his eyelids, yet he felt as if a furnace roared within his ribs, a heat that neither snow nor steel could quench. Lightbringer leaned beside the doorway, dull and soot-stained after its terrible labor. Though the blade no longer blazed, it remained warm beneath its layer of ash. Footsteps crunched behind him. Jon Snow emerged, cloak drawn tight against the dawn chill. His cheeks were raw, his dark hair rimed white at the tips. He halted a respectful distance, unsure whether to bow. "You asked for me, your grace." Stannis turned. Even in the weak light, Jon saw fresh lines etched at the corners of the king's eyes, as if the frost itself had scored them there. "I did," Stannis said. "Have you weighed my offer?" Jon glanced upward at the colossal sweep of the wall, pale as a dead giant stretching to the horizon. Far beyond that curtain lay the bodies of his brothers, the ghosts of vows sworn. "I have weighed it," he answered, voice steady, "and I find it heavier than I can bear." Stannis's jaw tightened. "Heavier than duty? My duty is to the Watch. If I take Winterfell, I break my oath. You would break more than that. You would break the North to Bolton rule." Jon's gray eyes flared. "Bolton rule should be broken by Northmen, not by Southron decree. My place is here." Stannis studied him, searching for weakness, yet found only sorrow. "Very well," he said at last, "but oaths do not forge heirs. The North requires Stark blood. If you will not claim Winterfell, I shall grant it to your sister." "My sister? Arya," Stannis replied. "Reports place the girl with King Robb's host, though half say she is dead, half that some wraith impersonates her. The realm is drunk on rumor. Yet should I find her, I will proclaim her Lady of Winterfell and wed her to one loyal to me." Jon's lips parted, breath misting. "Arya is a child. She wants a sword, not a husband. She will have both." Stannis lifted a black-gloved hand. "Think on it. The wall needs allies south. If a true Stark sits Winterfell and stands with me, your vows need not be tested by another tide of dead." Jon swallowed winter air like ground glass. "I will think on it. That is all I ask," Stannis said, though they both knew he asked far more. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In the common hall, Melisandre sat at a fire whose coals glowed strangely crimson, deeper, hotter than any mere wood should burn. She traced patterns in the ashes with a finger, humming a tune no Westerosi tongue had shaped in 5,000 years. Samwell Tarly watched from a trestle bench, wide-eyed behind his steamed spectacles. "The sword has dimmed," Sam ventured, voice a trembling cool scratch. Does that matter?" Melisandre looked up, the ruby at her throat pulsing faintly, as if answering the coals. "Lightbringer sleeps," she said. "Not every battle demands its waking. Flame too bright will blind those who must walk toward it." Sam tried not to shiver. He had faced wights at the fist. He had stabbed one through the throat with dragonglass and lived. Yet the calm in this woman's gaze chilled him more than ice. "I read of Azor Ahai," he blurted. "The prince that was promised. He wielded Lightbringer against the darkness. Some texts claim the sword was forged thrice. Might it weaken between each forging?" Melisandre's smile was like candlelight seen through red silk. "Books remember the echo, not the music. Lightbringer is strength made flesh. It wanes when the heart that commands it doubts the song." Sam glanced about, no brothers near enough to overhear. "Does the king doubt?" "Every man doubts." The red woman rose. "True kings doubt most of all. That is why they need flame to guide them." She gathered her cloak, turned toward the tower stair. "Tell your brothers to keep their torches lit, Maester-to-be. The night is not vanquished, only wounded. And wounded beasts are cruel." Sam watched her ascend, gooseflesh prickling beneath wool. He resolved to double the dragonglass patrols and pray the library's hearth never guttered. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Southward, in the riverlands, snow became sleet. Steel-gray clouds dumped half-frozen rain upon the fords of the Trident, turning winter roads to pits. Yet Tywin Lannister's host plodded on, 40 banners drooping, red cloaks clung wet to the backs of weary men-at-arms. In the high seat of Harrenhal's shattered keep, Lord Tywin stood before a hearth that hissed with damp logs, reading the latest Raven from King's Landing. Lady Olenna Tyrell en route to parley with Hand Seaworth. Grain convoys dispatched from Arbor under heavy guard. Davos requests truce along Rose Road for safe passage. Tywin crumpled the parchment into the fire. Flames licked it clean. "See how quickly rats learn new masters," he said.
Ser Kevan's shifted.
Olenna will feed any king who keeps her blossoms blooming. And Davos would welcome any coin that patches his leaking hull, Tywin replied. Yet so long as the stag and the rose feast together, the lion starves alone. He courts Dorne as well. Red Viper rides from Sunspear with 12 spears and twice as many grievances. Tywin's face remained marble, but one brow twitched. Martell will seek vengeance for Elia and her children. That bone he means to gnaw from me. He turned, eyes molten gold. We will deprive him of both appetite and bone. He called for quills, drafted new orders. Ravens sprang from cracked towers soon after, their wings beating against icy drizzle. To Lord Frey at the crossing, raise the river lords against this false peace. To Balon Greyjoy, raid the Tyrell coastlanes without mercy. To Roose Bolton, clamp the wolf in a northern vice. Each summarized with the lion's seal. When Kevin asked how coin would fund such ambitions, Tywin opened a cedar chest. Inside glimmered bars of yellow metal stamped with a foreign titan. The Iron Bank, he said. They back all sides until one stands. Then they collect. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At King's Landing, spring's first crocuses pushed through charred gardens of the Red Keep. Small stubborn spears of violet defying ruin. Davos Seaworth met Lady Olenna Tyrell beneath a scorched pergola where grapes once hung. She arrived in a litter of perfumed cushions, shawls piled high, her pinched face peering like a field mouse from grain. A sad garden, she observed as her guard helped her down. Yet perhaps with water and manure, something might bloom. Her sharp gaze flicked to Davos. Which of these, Ser, water or manure, best describes you? I have been called worse than manure, my lady. Davos gestured to the path. Shall we speak within? Within, the walls have ears. Olenna hooked her arm in his. Here flowers keep secrets. She led him among brittle vines, cane tapping. How fares our grim king? His grace stands the wall. Stands, does he? I'd sit if I were him on a cushion, not a blade. But kings will do as they please. Her eyes narrowed. He sends you to seek reach grain? He sends me to seek peace that feeds more than mouths. Davos halted by a broken sundial. You propose a betrothal between your grandson Willis and Princess Shireen. Propose? Olenna laughed dryly. I offer balm for your king's many aches. Willis is gentle, bookish, and bears a withered leg. Not the stuff of rebellion. My granddaughter would thrust spears at kings. Willis prefers pruning shears. Shireen will find kindness. And Highgarden expects? Reason. Olenna toyed with a brittle vine. A seat at council. A voice in harvest levies. Restoration of Old Town's privileges. She glanced to the blackened sky. And perhaps, if your fiery red which allows, a pardon for my poor fool of a son, should he err again. Davos thought of Melisandre's tight-lipped disapproval. The pardon I cannot promise, he said. But grain for loyalty, this I will carry north. Do. Olenna patted his arm. Remind your king. A rose shelters beneath a stag's antlers as easily as under a lion's paw, if allowed to grow. She stepped back into her litter, servants closing the silken curtains. Davos watched as the procession wound away, imagining swords hidden beneath those baskets of perfumes. That night he wrote to Stannis. The reach extends blossoms. Shall we pluck or prune? Then he sealed the letter with plain wax. He had no sigil beyond the faith of a king far away. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. On the long moor west of Moat Cailin, tents of gray and umber dotted fog-shrouded reeds. King Robb Stark paced outside the largest pavilion, cloak whipped by sleet. Inside, swords rattled across a war table. Great John Umber, Galbart Glover, Meege Mormont. They argued like hounds over a carcass. The news from the walls sat between them. Stannis victorious, Bolton banners betrayed Winterfell, Baratheon flames guarded the night fort. We march on the dread fort, skin the bastard, and hang Bolton beside him, Great John bellowed. And leave the phrase to bleed Riverrun? Galbart countered. The Lannisters carve our cousins while we chase flayed ghosts. Lady Meage's fist thudded the table. The North remembers. Winterfell first. Robb entered. Conversation died. My lords. He drew a dagger, slit a fresh raven tube. The parchment bore Davos Seaworth's plain seal. I scanned swift. Stannis calls for league. He offers to recognize the North's freedom, provided we join him against Bolton and Lannister alike. A hush. Great John spat. Recognize? We are free by right of sword. Yet swords chip, Glover murmured. Bolton's knives chip deeper. Robb rolled the scroll, hand trembling not from cold but weight. If I bend the knee to a Baratheon instead of a lion, are we truly free? Silence answered. Then Lady Meage spoke. A knee bends, my king, but a neck breaks. Robb closed his eyes, saw his father's severed head on Baelor's steps, his mother's tears at Riverrun, the burning keep he once called home. He sheathed the dagger. Send terms, he said. We meet at Greywater Watch neutral ground. If Stannis honors northern blood, we will answer. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At Pike, storm winds lashed sea tower walls, but Balon Greyjoy's council chamber smelled of victory. A map spread over the kraken-carved table showed little iron axes stamped along the Reach coast. Oakhart docks aflame, Tumbleton granaries raided, red wine barrels staved. Victarion removed his salt-stained helm, grinning like a drowned man reborn. The rose withers, he told his king. Balon's sea-worn fingers tapped the map. The stag starves too. Each sack of grain we seize costs him swords. He traced a line farther south, past Old Town's beacon, toward the Straits of Carthane. But we strike deeper. Seize the arbor, younger Redwines flee to Tyrell's succor. The Reach shall break under 2 wars. Victarion's grin faltered. Arbor fleet is mighty, Lord brother. 20 war galleys at least. 20. Euron's voice drifted from a shadowed arch. I see 20 songs, each ripe for plucking. He stepped into the torchlight, blue lips curved. Let the lions and stags trade antlers. We shall reap vineyards. Balon's one good eye narrowed, yet he nodded. So be it. Sail at first tide. The kraken feeds. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Meanwhile, at Sunspear, Prince Doran Martell read a blood-sealed letter from King's Landing. Invitation to court, promise of justice for Elia, a place upon the small council if Dornish spears rode north. He rubbed aching joints, feeling the weight of years. His brother Oberyn paced like a sand viper within a cage, itching for war. Stannis slays others, Oberyn hissed. He removes the lioness's head. Now he calls. Shall we answer with words or with spears? Doran folded the letter. Words first, then spears. Words sharpened. Brother? Doran's smile was a slow sunrise. Words dipped in venom. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. North of the wall, Mance Raider's ragged host limped through a valley of blue pine and shattered obsidian where the ground still steamed from dragonglass mines long forgotten. The wildling king rode a shaggy Garen, cloak patched with crow feathers. He halted atop a ridge to watch fires flicker at Stannis' new outpost beyond the empty fist. A southern king fights the dead, Tormund Giantsbane muttered beside him. He fights for all free folk too, though they never bent knee to him. Mance's mouth quirked. Will they? Aye, when moles ride mammoths. But they might fight beside him. Mance rested hand on horn strapped to his saddle. Better a stern lord than cold death. He gazed at the wall. Yet first we break bread, not ice. He ordered trusted riders south under parley flag, milk-water hides sewn into a makeshift stag. Beyond, giants hooted at the moon while children of the forest whispered among roots, watching. Perhaps the bristlecone faced a new dawn. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Days later, the parley took place upon the frozen bank of the Milkwater, where birch trees groaned under coats of rime. Stannis arrived with a score of knights, Mance with a score of raiders. Between them burned a single brazier. Snow sifted down in lazy spirals. I know you, Stannis said, eyeing the tattered crown of woven holly about Mance's brow. You wore a black cloak once, and you wore a council's chains at Dragonstone. Mance answered. "We've changed clothes, not causes. Your cause drove thousands against my wall. My cause kept them alive." Stannis studied the wildling king, as one might a mirror that reflected choices unmade. "You will march your folk east of the Shadow Tower. There I will grant land south of the wall under my rule. You will kneel. Free folk do not kneel, then die on ice." Mance's eyes flashed, yet he breathed a cloud, let it fade. "I will kneel once, not for myself but for the living. Let it be enough." He dropped to one knee upon the snow. The wind sank to hush. Stannis inclined his head. "Rise as subjects." Mance did, though a hardness lingered. He beckoned a slim woman forward, tawny-haired, belly swollen with child. "My wife Dalla. Where she walks, peace must follow." Stannis nodded brusquely, yet in his mind he saw another woman, Melisandre, foretelling king's blood unborn. He forced the thought aside. "The free folk will be counted, armed, and led as auxiliaries under my banners. You will help hold the wall. And when your iron lords tire of free folk neighbors?" Stannis's jaw clenched. "They will obey law or answer me." Mance gave a crooked smile. "Then let us write a new law upon this snow, before sun melts the ink." He extended a hand. After a heartbeat, Stannis clasped it. Flesh touched flesh, warmth amid endless cold. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. On the wall that night, Jon Snow leaned against a merlin, watching torches bob down the King's Road far below. Free folk wagons rolled south under Stormlander escort, beginning their exodus. The wind smelled of pine smoke and possibility. Sam joined him, cheeks pink. "I never thought I'd see wildlings march through Castle Black without arrows in their backs. I never thought I'd see a Baratheon save the wall," Jon replied. He flexed fingers still bruised from battle. "Strange days. Stranger still. Maester Aemon says ravens from Old Town speak of dragons across the sea." Sam's voice dropped. "3 of them grown large." Jon's breath plumed. "Dragons, others, kings in the snow." The songs were warnings all along. "And what warning is this?" Sam asked, pointing north. Skeins of green aurora danced upon the horizon, shimmering curtains that rippled like banners in spectral wind. Jon watched the light swirl, felt the wall hum underfoot, old magic stirring. "That the night isn't done with us," he said softly. "Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis." In King's Landing, Davos stood on the ramparts of Aegon's high hill as a ship from Sunspear eased into Blackwater Bay, orange sails glowing by lanternlight. At its prow, the Red Viper of Dorne leaned on a spear tipped with shining steel, smiling as though the night breeze carried secrets meant for him alone. Behind Davos, bells tolled. He turned to watch Lady Olenna's litter enter the Red Keep gates, escorted by knights in gilded rose armor. Peace or peril? The hand of the king could not yet say, but he knew the city breathed easier with each sack of Tyrell grain unloaded, each Dornish wine cask hauled ashore. He knew widows now lit candles to both the Seven and the Lord of Light, hedging prayers like merchants hedge coin. He knew whispers of dragons had reached even Flea Bottom, where urchins carved 3-headed beasts into alley walls and asked if fire might fly west to warm them. He also knew letters from the Iron Bank demanded repayment schedules, and that reports from the Riverlands spoke of Fry levies harrying refugee columns. Justice waited its reckoning, and Davos prayed his king would return before that reckoning bled the realm anew. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. On the 21st day after the Battle of the Night Fort, Melisandre lit her greatest fire yet upon the wall. She summoned no audience, yet men came, drawn moth-like. Jon Snow stood among them, cloak snapping. She cast powders red, gold, obsidian into the blaze. Sparks roared skyward. The flames writhed into shapes. A mask of gold melting into a woman with silver hair. A 3-headed dragon breathing green. A stag crowned in fire standing beside a dire wolf made of snow. The wolf raised its snout and howled silent songs. Melisandre stretched her arms. "The Dragon Queen crosses the world," she intoned. "Ice breaks, fire answers. The prince that was promised shall stand with the sword of dawnlight, or darkness shall feast on the living." Men whispered. Jon stared, heart hammering. Stannis arrived, face stony in the orange glare. "Is this my destiny?" he asked the flames. The fire swirled, showing only his own shadow taller than any man. Then a child's face, Shireen's, overlaid with scales of darkness. Stannis flinched. Melisandre breathed. "Blood for light."
No, Stannis snapped.
"Enough." He strode away, cloak smothering sparks. Jon followed, troubled. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In his quarters, Stannis paced. Davos's raven lay upon the table, unopened. A second scroll, Robb Stark's, marked Greywater parley. A third, Tyrell Grain, signed by Lady Olenna. Duties collided like waves upon rock. He paused before Lightbringer, resting across a trestle. Its edge glimmered faintly, as though recalling old fire. He laid fingers upon the hilt. The steel was warm, but offered no counsel. A knock. Jon entered. "Your Grace, may I speak?" Stannis nodded. "The free folk will march at dawn," Jon said. "Your smiths ask where to quarter them as they reach Mole's town." "Quarter them in tents outside the palisade," Stannis replied. "Walls sow resentment. Winter will test them." Jon hesitated. "And your reply to my brother's terms?" Stannis' stare was flint. "The wolf would meet the stag in swamps haunted by reeds and ghosts." "Very well. I ride south in 3 days. You will hold the wall." "Me?" "Lord Commander Mormont is gravely wounded. Bowen Marsh feuds with Cotter Pike. You have the trust of both black and free men." "I swore to guard the realms of men. This is guarding." Stannis took Jon's forearm. "Keep the wall. If I fail with Robb or with Tyrell's, you stand between life and death." Jon felt the heat of the king's grasp, the weight of entrusted fate. He nodded. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Far across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen stood upon the prow of the Silver Grace, wind whipping pale hair behind her. Drogon wheeled above, vast wings blotting constellations. Astapor's lights dwindled astern. North lay Pentos, Bravos, and beyond, the land her ancestors forged in fire. She held a letter delivered by a Pentoshi envoy. "A new king sits an old throne of swords, forged in just flame. He burns the dead with living fire and wields a sword called Lightbringer. He courts no dragons, yet dragons may court him." Daenerys crushed the parchment. Flame burst between her fingers. She dropped the ash into the sea. "No king but what I choose," she whispered. "So you shall, Khaleesi," Ser Barristan said behind her, voice calm as tide. "Yet every ally is wind in a sail, and every chain is weight on a dragon," she answered. Still she gazed west. Somewhere across that dark water, fire answered ice. For good or ill, she would see its glow. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Thus the game spun onward. Tyrell Grain hips threaded pirate-plagued seas, while Lady Olenna bartered tongues sharper than daggers. Freys sharpened real daggers in river forts, plotting weddings no minstrel would dare sing. Bolton ravagers ringed Barrowton with fear, flaying banners and men alike, yet dreamed of Winterfell frostwhite beneath red flayed men. The Iron Bank weighed ledgers thicker than kings' egos, ready to fund whomever promised repayment in blood or gold. Oberyn Martell rode north with laughter and poison in equal measure. Euron Greyjoy sailed wine-rich arbor bays, seeking songs of krakens and dragons to whet his madness. And in the secret places of the world, things colder than death whispered of a heart shattered but not slain, shards scattered yet yearning for shape. Frost found cracks in stone, in will, in time. Men kindled campfires, forged alliances, made war, made love, and thought themselves architects. Yet winter listened, patient. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. 3 days later, as a pale sun crawled above the wall, King Stannis Baratheon rode south with 2,000 horse, 3,000 foot, and the promise of 3 realms tugging at his cloak. Lightbringer hung silent at his hip. Melisandre remained behind, watching from the parapets, eyes pools of ember. Jon Snow stood beside her, black cloak blending with hers of scarlet. He asked no blessing, She offered none. Below, free folk trudged through the gates, some staring up in fear, others in hope, as if wondering which guardian, black or red, would better shield them. Stannis' column vanished into the forests of the gift, banners dwindling to colored motes. Their hoofbeats faded. When they were gone, the wind sighed through crenels, carrying the faintest echo of battle yet to come. A clash not of crowns alone, but of the very seasons. Jon turned to descend the icy stair. Melisandre watched the road until the last mote fell from sight. Then she whispered to the dawn, a prayer half song, half warning. All flames burn, all shadows grow. Let the true light stand, or night devour the dawn. Her breath curled white and disappeared. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In the caverns below the night fort, where cracked stone steps wound around a well black as starless sky, frost began to creep anew. A shard of something neither ice nor glass pulsed faint blue at the darkness's heart. Tiny rivulets of water trickled toward it, freezing upon contact. The shard quivered, as if remembering a form it once wore. High above, men on walls spoke of spring. Below, winter sharpened its teeth and waited, for kings to falter, for oaths to break, for blood to spill anew beneath a sword that might yet fail to blaze. And still the tale uncoiled, slow as drifting snow, toward destinies written in fire, in steel, and in the cold silence between. Snowflakes like pale cinders drifted over the King's Road as Stannis Baratheon's column wound south through the gift, banners sodden, horses laboring knee-deep where drifts had blown across the track. The king rode at the van, cloak frozen stiff, frost furring the dark stubble along his scarred jaw. Each labored breath plumed white and vanished, yet the furnace heat beneath his breastplate would not dim. Often he pressed a gloved hand to his ribs as though to smother coals. Each time the flame inside reminded him it would not be quenched by leather. Behind him trudged Stormlander spearmen, 5 abreast, shields lacquered black against the glare. Axemen from Massey's Hook followed, boots creaking, their axes rapped to hush the jangle of steel. Then came a ragged company of free folk archers, stripped of mammoth hide and antler helms, clad now in loaned mail that pinched at unfamiliar shoulders. Crannogmen outriders, ghost quiet upon long-legged bog ponies, scouted forward, melting into every copse. The marsh folk had appeared as if conjured when the army reached the next northern verge. A tall man with reed-woven crown rode to Stannis' stirrup, mud up to his knees, and named himself Jojen of the Children's Tower, cousin to Lord Howland. Word had flashed south that Greywater Watch offered safe passage, but only if the column broke into small knots to spread weight across the quaking bogs. So now battalions traveled like beads upon a string of causeways no wider than a shield, each gap masked by mist. Stannis disliked dividing strength, yet necessity ruled. He pushed the pace, scarce pausing to warm tents. Nights brought strange sounds, gulps of unseen marsh whales, piping frogs whose calls chimed like glass, the low moan of wind sloshing between sedge tufts. Some Stormlanders muttered of spirits. Melisandre said little, but the ruby at her throat pulsed more brightly whenever the dark grew thick. On the 5th night, camped upon a low spit of solid ground, 2 sentries vanished. Dawn revealed hoofprints that simply stopped at water's edge, though no corpse floated nearby. Stannis' jaw tightened as he stared at the ripples. Crannogmen testing courage, suggested Ser Arnold Estermont, but none voiced it loudly. The king ordered torches kept burning day and night thereafter, and Melisandre scattered powdered seeds in the shape of a 7-pointed star that burned green when touched by ember. "Swamp lights will shun our path," she murmured. The soldiers kept closer henceforth. By the 7th day the chill lessened, fog turning thin and silvery. Patches of heather showed through snow, and black-winged crows flapped overhead cawing mockery. Shortly before dusk, the vanguard halted upon a hummock crowned with alder. Ahead lay a sheet of water dotted with tussocks. Beyond it, half hidden by reeds, a cluster of timber towers seemed to drift like ships at anchor. At first glance they appeared no larger than watch posts, but as mist parted Stannis saw walls sheathed in gray-green moss, each log broader than a man's torso, each battlement sloped like a longship's prow. Lanterns swung upon swaying bridges connecting towers, their amber glow reflecting off the black mirror of the bog. Greywater Watch had found them. 2 punts glided forth, poled by marshmen in cloaks woven of living rushes. They grounded upon a bank where Ser Godry Faring stood watch, and a slim figure hopped to shore, barefoot despite the chill, hair the green of river weed. The youth bowed. "I am Mira, daughter to Lord Howland Reed. My father bids the king and his chosen retainers enter as guests. Arms may remain on belt. This ground belongs to no crowned realm." Stannis gestured for Davos, Ser Richard Horp, and Melisandre to join, though the Red Woman smiled that tight smile which made soldiers cross themselves. They boarded the punts. Slow as spiders on glass, the boats slid between reed walls, following channels lit by oil lamps set atop floating corkwood. Fish with silver eyes flashed beneath. Once a pale crocodile drifted alongside, jaws yawning until Mira flicked her pole and it sank into murk. The towers loomed taller as they neared 3 for stories, each perched upon barges lashed to hidden pilings. A timber stair ascended to a wide deck where torches sputtered. At the head of the stair waited a squat man in leather as green as pond scum, hair grayer than weathered driftwood, eyes mild yet unblinking. He leaned on an ash staff carved with runes. "King Stannis," he said, voice low but clear, "I am Howland Reed. My hall drifts, yet my oaths hold fast. Welcome." Stannis stepped onto the deck, Lightbringer's hilt gleaming in the torchlight. "Your message spoke of counsel. It spoke of truth," Reed answered. "You seek alliance. Truth must precede." He ushered them into a round hall whose walls wept slow trickles where moss clung. A hearth of river stones burned smokeless peat that smelled of earth after rain. Mats of woven rushes covered the deck. No throne, only a low driftwood table at whose center stood a bowl filled with water. Reed motioned them sit upon cushioned stools. Upon settling, Davos noted the faint sway beneath his boots. The entire hall moved on the tide as promised. Howland dipped fingers into the bowl. "Our law. No lie may stand beyond water's mirror. Speak, and the reeds will judge." Stannis folded arms. "I claim the Iron Throne by Robert's blood and the realm's law. I broke a false lion queen and turned back winter's dead. Now I march to cast down traitors." His gaze cut to Melisandre, then back. "I offer the North freedom within its borders, so long as wolves stand beside stags against lions and flayed men." Reed's fingers rippled the water. "Freedom is a word. The North remembers deeds. Bolton knives remember flaying. Fry knives remember the throat of a king yet unslit." He lifted his hand. Droplets shone upon calloused skin. "Robb Stark waits 3 leagues hence. Will you meet him as equal, or as lord expecting fealty?" "As equal in cause," Stannis answered after a beat. "But law names me king above kings." Reed's mouth twitched. "Law once named Ares king above dragons. Blood overthrew him." He turned to a shadowed alcove. "Come, young wolf, drink and judge." Robb Stark stepped forth, tall despite travel, coppery hair tied with rawhide. Snowmelt dripped from his cloak hem. Gray wind patted at his heel, amber eyes reflecting torchlight. Upon his breast he wore no crown, only a direwolf brooch of dark iron. Great John Umber limped behind with spear. Galbart Glover followed on silent boots. Davos stiffened. 5 heartbeats, and bloodshed might explode. Yet Robb halted before the bowl, dipped cupped hands, drank. Water trickled from his beard onto furs. He looked up, eyes weary but fixed. "Your Grace," he said, voice hoarse, "I have bled half my banners east, bled the other half south. Bolton holds my home, Fry my river. But the dead do not care for borders and lions circle. So I hear your offer. Speak plain." Stannis rose. The hall listed gently. "I free the North."
Bolton dies. Lannister dies.
"In return, the North marches with me against all who threaten realm, be they Southron or other. When war is done, the wall stands with Stark and Baratheon both." Grey wind growled, hackles bristling. Robb laid a hand upon his ruff. "And Winterfell?" he asked softly. Yours, said Stannis. But the flayed man must be plucked. I will lead that siege. Your spears may join or watch. Gretchen's laugh boomed. Watch a Southron take back our castle? I'd sooner watch mummers piss on Ned's bones. Robb raised a hand. Silence fell. He faced Stannis. I'll fight at your side. If you swear beneath the heart tree that the North shall never again be subject to Southron tax or levy. We ride south when we choose, not by king's summons. Our godswood remains sacred, untouched by red flames. Melisandre's ruby flared. The old gods are dead gods. Stannis held up a mailed fist. Enough, he turned to Robb. I swear justice, and I swear never to demand what honor does not freely give. He drew Lightbringer, its dull metal flicking peat fire light upon the rush mats. With measured steps he strode to a wooden door reed unlatched, revealing a narrow walkway out into falling snow. Beyond lay a small grove of heart trees, willows, birch, and one gnarled weirwood rising from muck in a coracle of roots lashed to the raft. Its face was pale, eyes red sap tears gleaming. Across the walkway, Robb followed barefoot, leaving steaming prints. When Stannis knelt at the base, the weirwood's carved eyes seemed to narrow. I, Stannis Baratheon, he said, voice carrying over Blackwater, swear by earth and water, light and shadow, fire and night, that the North shall rule itself, so long as it stands in justice and honors its ancient oaths to guard the realm of men. May my sword shatter, may my blood turn ice should I break this vow. Peat smoke wafted. Robb lifted his dirk, sliced his palm, let crimson drip upon gnarled roots. I, Robb Stark, king in the North, swear by ice and snow, moon and wolf, that the North shall stand with King Stannis against all who threaten the living, until winter's night is ended. They clasped bloody hands. Steam rose where blood mingled and hissed upon Lightbringer's flat. Just for an instant, the sword's edge glowed ember. Behind, Howland Reed exhaled as if a weight lifted. So it is bound, he whispered. Melisandre watched, unreadable, yet her ruby dimmed to the shade of winter berries. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Greywater watch served eel stew thick with leeks that night. The kings sat cross-legged upon reed mats while Great John drained bog beer and roared songs about bear maids. Galbart Glover traded maps with Ser Richard. Mira and Jojen darted between guests, refilling mead horns. Davos found himself beside Robb's mother Catelyn, newly arrived with a small retinue. Lines fanned her eyes, but her voice remained steel. My son gives trust easily, she said as bowls were cleared. Too easily? Davos asked. Perhaps just enough. She glanced to where Stannis conferred with Robb and Reed over open scrolls. Bolton's knives cut deep. Alone we bleed out. Together we may staunch. Davos nodded. King Stannis holds his word tighter than coin. Yet men fear his sternness. Fear matters less than famine, Catelyn muttered. She touched the faded gray wool at her shoulder. If Stannis brings grain before the next moon, I will fear any god he names. When torches guttered low, the council settled terms. Bolton first, Frey next. Stannis would march upon Barrowton with his Stormlanders and Glover's men, while Robb led Umber's north along the King's Road to draw Ramsay's outriders. Reed swore his Crannog men would harry supply wagons from the west. Once Bolton fell back, the hosts would converge upon Winterfell. There Stannis would break the walls with engines salvaged from Dragonstone. Robb's direwolf host would storm breaches, taking the castle in his father's name. Lightbringer would judge Ramsay. Flayed banners would burn. At dawn, two kings clasped arms on the swaying jetty, and ravens flew south and east. War had found new partners. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. King's Landing smelled of dung and hope as the first green shoots sprouted in the fields beyond the city, fertilized by corpse ash. Davos paced the small council chamber beneath a painted ceiling still blackened by wildfire smoke. At the round table sat Maester Pylus, Salador-san lounging with boots upon inlaid map, Lady Olenna fanning herself, and Prince Oberyn Martell leaning on twin elbows, spear set aside but red eyes glinting mischief. Axel Florent guarded the door, jaw clenched. The arbor burns, Pylus reported, unrolling a sailcloth map annotated with red blobs. Euron Greyjoy's raiders struck Vine Town. Redwine fleet lost 5 galleys before retreat. He pointed. Reach grain convoys now detour along coast of Dorne under Martell escort. Oberyn smiled thinly. The sea tastes of wine and Kraken ink. Davos rubbed temples. If Arbor shipments halt, we starve again before harvest. Lady Olenna snapped her fan shut. Better to prune Kraken before they devour vineyards. Salador chuckled. My Lysine lads chase Kraken far better when coffers clink. Axel bristled. Your coffers drown our purse, Sell-Sail. Peace, Davos said. We must divert Royal Fleet north. Protect grain lanes. Oberyn traced a fingertip along Dorne's coast. Martell ships can guard to Storm's End if be. Erythean gold funds fresh hulls. Axel hissed, but Davos seized the opening. Agreed. Prince Oberyn, the crown grants coin for 10 new carracks in Sunspear yards. In exchange, Dorne patrols the stepstones and convoys to Dragonstone. Olenna raised a brow. Arbor wine flows again, Tyrell grain too. But without gold, my son will count kernels. Show him profit. Profit arrives when the city lives, Davos said. Tell Mace the Iron Bank approves new loans. Interest steep, yet survival steeper. He gestured to Pylus, who produced Bravosi letters of credit. Stag coin minted with Reach silver. Half interest forgiven if grain reaches by midsummer. Olenna's eyes sharpened. You haggle like a fishmonger, Ser Onion. Very well. Mace will swallow a bone wrapped in bread. Outside, bells tolled second hour. Davos dismissed counsel, but Oberyn lingered. A word, Hand. He leaned close, breath scented with blood orange. I heard whispers of dwarf in a ship's hold bound for Pentos. Tyrion? Davos's heart jolted. Confirmed. Not yet. My eyes follow. Oberyn tapped hilt of hidden dagger. A Lannister with knowledge of his father's plans, worth more than gold. Davos swallowed. Bring him alive if you can. Alive is dull, Oberyn purred. But for you I will temper steel. With a wink he departed, cloak swirling viper bright. Davos exhaled, feeling the realm's weight upon shoulders still sore from chains long gone. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Beyond the wall, Jon Snow confronted a different weight. Dawn cast violet light across Castle Black's yard, where 200 wildlings queued before Donal Noy's forges to trade bone knives for iron. Brothers of the Watch glowered from parapets. Mutterings drifted like smoke. Bowen Marsh approached Jon beside the old armory. Lord Snow, pardon, Steward Snow. He began, voice stiff. These savages strip our stores. Brothers shiver while wild men wear crow-forged steel. Jon studied the faces in the line. Gaunt mothers, spearwives, lank-haired boys with haunted eyes. He answered softly, if they freeze, they die. Then they rise. We need them alive. Need? Our vows. Our vows are shields for the living. Jon cut in. Not for comfortable walls. Marsh's mouth compressed. Men whisper your name as Lord Commander. They whisper too that free folk share our hearth while brothers go hungry. Whispers become knives. Jon held his gaze, felt tired down to marrow. We ration equally, he said. Tell the kitchens. Marsh stalked away. Later, Sam brought troubling news. A brother stabbed outside Shadow Tower by unknown hand. Wildling arrow planted to blame. Tormund Giantsbane swore oath that his folk shed no crow blood. Yet seeds of distrust took root. That night Jon walked the wall. Below, Molestown lights flickered like dying stars. Melisandre's pyre no longer burned, yet crimson embers glowed beneath snow, never extinguished. She appeared at his side without sound. The wall cracks, she murmured. Jon's breath fogged. I hear it in men's voices. They cling to fear. Her eyes glimmered. Fear must be given to the fire. Jon's hand rested on Longclaw. Burn fear, not men. We burn what fear hides within men. She touched the ice parapet. Frost hissed, steaming. Jon recoiled. Enough burning. Enough doubt, she countered. A darker tide rises. She gazed north, where green aurora shimmered. Ice sows itself anew. What was broken mends. Jon followed her stare. Far off, beyond white hills, a pulse of blue lit the horizon, then vanished. Not lightning, something colder. He shivered despite furs. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In a high tower of the Dreadfort, Ramsay Snow lounged upon a chair upholstered with human skin, one thumb tracing the soft edge where nipple once rose. Theon Greyjoy knelt chained nearby, gaunt and shivering. Ramsay hummed as a huntsman brought news. Stannis joined with Stark, Crannogmen cut lines, Barrow-Tun threatened. Ramsay laughed. The stag feels bold. Good. We will show him how a flayed man dances. He rose, kicked Theon's ribs. You'll dance first, Reek. Write a letter. Lord Bolton holds your sister in his care. Invite the king to parley. Promise her safe return. When he comes, we'll feed him to hounds. Theon coughed blood. Aasha is not here. Ramsay knelt, smile a crescent moon. But princes believe what fear paints. Write or lose another finger. The quill was shoved into trembling hand. Ink blotched parchment with dread. Roose Bolton entered, pale eyes missing nothing. Bold plots birth bold foes, my son. Foes taste sweetest, Ramsay replied. See, they do not taste us first. Roose unfurled a raven scroll. Tywin's seal bleached red. The lion offers coin and crossbows for our cause. Stannis rides north. We bleed him here, then retire south to Lion's Gold.
Ramsay tapet Fleietskin drum.
And Winterfell? Stone endures. Roose's lips thin. But sons endure through careful knives. Let the wolf and stag tear each other. We skin the survivor. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At the arbor, heat shimmered over crushed grapeskins while crimson sails dotted the horizon. Euron's silence leading a flotilla of black-hulled raiders. Lord Paxter Redwine marshaled his remaining galleys, their prows adorned with carved mermaids. The sea battle that followed stained waves purple with wine and blood. Ironborn grappling hooks bit into soft cedar. Axes chewed rigging. Paxter's flagship, Lady Meredith, rammed Silence broadside, but Ironborn leapt her decks as if born of spray, Euron at their head clad in scaled armor of midnight. He laughed through the carnage, an eye patch studded with opal. When Redwine fell wounded, Euron hoisted a wine barrel, broke the head, and let the vintage flood over the deck. The sea drinks deep, he cried. And so do I. By dusk the arbor burned, vineyards crackling. Ravens fled with tidings that would sour reach wines for a generation. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Across the sea, Daenerys' fleet skirted Braavos' Titan at dawn. The colossal bronze legs straddled the channel, and Drogon screeched a challenge, flame-licking clouds. Braavosi oarsmen cowered. The Titan's trumpets answered. In the Sea Lord's palace, counselors argued whether to treat with a dragon queen, while Iron Bank clerks whispered of royal debts unpaid in Westeros. Debts now wagering upon a stag's victory. Daenerys granted audience to a lean banker named Tycho, who bowed low. Our bank loans to kings who keep promises, he said, and forecloses on those who cannot. A stag king wages war against winter and lions alike. Yet some whisper his coin short, his loans long. Daenerys lifted a goblet. A dragon pays in fire and blood. Tycho's smile did not reach eyes. Fire clears debt swiftly, and leaves little behind. He offered a scroll, ledgers of Stannis' borrowing. Dany studied numbers, contemplating whether the stag was worth her alliance, or her dragon's next meal. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Spring sunlight thawed Barrowfield's frozen ruts as Stannis' vanguard crested a ridge to behold Roose Bolton's mustering ground. Tents stretched like dirty snowdrops across the plain. Flayed man banners flapped listlessly. Smoke rose from forges where reaper blades sharpened. Scouts estimated 7,000 spears, bolstered by Frey outriders. Stannis called council beneath a lone weirwood still leaf-bare. Robb rode in with Greatjon, cheeks flushed. Howland Reed appeared ghost-quiet. Ser Richard spread maps upon stump. Bolton in trenches, Robb said. "He'll not meet us in open. Then we draw him out," Stannis replied. "Night marches upon his supply." He ordered Reed's marshmen to flood ditches, Glover's archers to torch herricks under cover of darkness. "We strangle his larder," Great John grinned. "Starve the bastards, then bite." He hefted axe to punctuate. But that night, as the moons rose twin silver sickles, a lone horn sounded from Bolton camp. A rider approached under rag-torn flag. Ser Roland hailed him. The rider passed a parch to Robb's sentries, then galloped away. In Stannis's tent the letter unfurled. Crude words in shaky hand, sealed with clotted blood. "Stag King, Wolf King, Winterfell girl here mewling. Come alone or she dies." Beneath, a patch of girl's blue dress torn and stained. Robb's face paled Sansa's color. "It's a lie," Catelyn whispered, yet tears trembled. Stannis read twice. "Bolton aims to split us." Robb's knuckles whitened upon the page. "If there is a chance." "No," Stannis laid Lightbringer across map. "We march as planned. Wolves watch the flank. I will face Ramsay." Robb's jaw worked. "My sister will be avenged, dead or living." The king's eyes burned. "But abandon plan and we risk realm." Silence. The candle between them flickered. At last Robb nodded, once, sharp, like a sword stroke. "War hardened hearts more than iron." Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Castle black, Jon awoke to shouts. Smoke curled under his door. He raced into corridor. Flames licked tapestries. A brother staggered past, tunic burning. Jon smothered him with cloak, heart thundering. Horn blasts cut the night, 1-2 chaos. Outside, the old armory blazed. Wildlings formed bucket chains while some black brothers hurled torches back, screaming about stolen rations. Bowen Marsh's voice cracked above din. "Traitors! Drive them out!" Jon seized Marsh's arm. "Stand down! Crows first!" Marsh snarled, jerking free. Then a horn wailed thrice, from the north side of the wall. The fight froze. All eyes turned where torches on the ice parapet winked frantic. 3 blasts. The dead. Jon dashed to stairs, 2 at a time, lungs blazing. On the walkway, a ranger pointed north. Out across the moon-white wastes, a line of figures shuffled, pale against snow thousands. At their center glimmered a cold blue star. Men forgot the riot, stared in mute horror. Jon drew Longclaw. "Light every pitch pot," he bellowed. Brothers to their posts. Wildlings too. In the courtyard Melisandre strode, ruby pulsing. She mounted the outer stair, cloak streaming. Atop the parapet she raised both arms. Words older than the wall rolled from her throat. Below, torches flared sky-high. Wildlings cried awe. Blue shapes advanced but slowly. Yet one by one they halted, crystalline limbs stiffening. The blue star pulsed once, twice, then dimmed. Whispers floated on the wind, fragments of choked anger. The line turned, melted back into trees. Cheers erupted, weak, disbelieving at first, then thunderous. Yet Jon's eyes tracked the darkness where the star vanished. Retreat, not defeat. Testing. He glanced at Melisandre. Sweat beaded her brow despite cold. She met his gaze, voice a ragged whisper. "Shard of the Nightart," she said. "Grows stronger daily. My flame turns it back, for now. But flame without king's blood fades." Jon felt a chill deeper than wind. He thought of Shireen, of Stannis' daughter reading tales in Dragonstone's library. He wondered how far a father's love might bend when winter threatened all. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Davos's next raven reached Stannis 2 dawns later, encoded hand advising of Greyjoy victories, Tyrell delays, and Iron Bank pressure. The king read under a rain-soaked pavilion, men breaking camp around him. He set the parchment aside, called for Quill. "Hold firm. Grain will come, so will sword." He paused, added, "Guard the girl." He sealed with wax pressed by a signet of crowned stag over flaming heart. Outside the pavilion, rain turned snow to sludge. Stormlander spears formed ranks, shields catching drizzle. Robb sat astride gray stallion, gray wind pacing, muzzle flecked with foam. Across the mire, Bolton lines bristled, red banners. Awkward pikes' trumpets bleated flat, horns responded. Between armies stretched churned earth and the ruins of an old stone sept whose walls now served as Ramsay's outpost. Stannis mounted Shadowfax, Lightbringer unsheathed. The sword's edge sparked as raindrops hissed upon it. He raised it high. Fog scattered before its glow. Soldiers cheered, throats raw. From Ramsay's lines rolled thunder. Massive cage carts wheeled forward. Within, half-naked prisoners pressed against bars. Small folk, northern women. One child wearing a mouse-eaten blue dress. Robb's breath caught, fingers digging in reins. Stannis' stare never wavered. He spurred forward alone, Lightbringer blazing. Ramsay emerged from behind pikemen, pale smile gleaming, cloak of flayed pink strips fluttering. "Come sup, Lord Stag," he shouted across mud. "I've cooked you, wolf." Stannis reined in 20 yards away. Rain steamed off his blade. "Release prisoners, face me in single combat. End this clean." Ramsay's laugh skittered. "Clean? Flace the flavor I savor." He signaled. Archers notched black-fletched arrows toward the cages. Robb's bellow cut across lines. "Stop!" Gray wind howled. Stannis did not glance back. "Your choice, bastard." He nudged his destrier 2 paces nearer, sword leveled. Ramsay's grin faltered, eyes flicking to the glowing steel. He spat, raised hand, perhaps to command fire, but a reed-shafted arrow sprouted through his palm. Screeching, he staggered. Crannogman hunters in marsh grass unleashed volley after volley. Bolton line shuffled. Stannis kicked Shadowfax. Robb's horn sounded. The line of Stormlanders surged. Umber axes followed. Glover bows sang. Reed's traps burst from bog, tipping wagons. In chaos, the cages toppled, doors shattered. Prisoners ran. Ramsay's shrill cry vanished beneath horse hooves. Stannis swung Lightbringer, blue sparks meeting red mud. Wherever the blade passed, armor hissed, flesh melted. He sought the bastard but found only flayed men screaming. On Bolton's left, Robb cleaved through pikemen toward Roos's banner. Great John lifted his axe, roaring, "Kings in the north!" A surge of gray and white cloaks crashed, mashing heads into swamp. The battle churned from orderly lines to knots of savage struggle across reeds. Rain hardened to sleet, drumming helms. Lightbringer's glow bobbed through gloom like a fallen star. Atop a small hillock, Stannis reigned amid corpses. Shadowfax puffed steam. The king scanned, there. Ramsay fleeing on a black courser toward Barrow Hall. Stannis spurred, but Boggs swallowed horses' stride. Glover's men raced ahead, yet a Fry contingent charged from flank, cutting pursuit. Ramsay vanished into mist. Still, Bolton banners sagged. Roose signaled retreat. Horns quavered. By dusk, only wreckage remained. Broken pikes, drowned men tangled in reeds. The sept stones blackened by fire. Cages stood empty. Sansa Stark was not among freed prisoners. The blue dress belonged to a miller's daughter half-mad from torment. Robb knelt beside her, tears lost in sleet. Stannis laid gauntlet on his shoulder. "We break the dread fort next. No other end." Robb rose, eyes ice.
"No merci."
"Only justice," Stannis answered. That night, pyres burned tame, without Melisandre's powders. Men warmed hands at ordinary flame, feeling victory so near it tasted like blood. Yet in the darkness beyond camp, hounds bayed, carrying Ramsay's vow of vengeance across wounded fields. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In King's Landing, thunder shook the red keep though the sky remained clear. A portent, some said. Lady Olenna watched black clouds gather out beyond Blackwater and murmured of roses that drooped before storm. In his solar, Davos opened a sealed missive bearing a Kraken sigil. Euron demanded recognition of the Iron Isle's sovereignty, or Arbor Grain would sink forever. Davos sighed, another blade at the throat. He penned 2 letters, one to Stannis, victory at Barrowton vital. City fragile. Grain threatened. Another to the Iron Bank, Funds scarce. War wide. Request extension. He sealed with plain wax, praying words were cheaper than blood. As candles guttered, he recalled a low-born smuggler once thrilled by narrow escapes. Now he shepherded kingdoms through storms. He wondered how long before all hulls splintered. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Night enveloped Castle Black once more. Jon Snow stood atop the wall gazing north where gold lights flickered. Wildling fires beyond the gift, quiet tonight. Beneath his feet, ice vibrated softly, a heartbeat older than men. He breathed frost, listening. Somewhere in the Night Fort's pit, a shard of blue pulsed, gathering strength stolen back from each chill wind. Jon did not see it, yet felt its echo in the ache of his old wounds. He prayed silently, for the king who rode through storm, for the sister lost, for the flame that must stand. The aurora blossomed violet above, veils of otherworldly silk dancing. Jon drew Longclaw, set it against the battlement. The steel caught a ghost of that strange light, gleaming pale as dawn. He wondered if swords, like men, could feel hope. And below, in camps and castles across a torn continent, thousands slept uneasy, hearts beating in rhythm with distant war drums and an older, deeper pulse calling from caverns of blue ice. Kings marched, dragons stirred, krakens feasted, roses schemed, vipers slithered, wolves howled beneath foreign banners, and the stag of iron and fire pressed onward, antlers lowered against storms seen and unseen. Winter still waited, sharpening silence into spears. But tonight, amid blood and ash and fragile packs, the living fought to keep their fires burning, and for a while longer, the night held back from devouring their small, stubborn light. Night rolled across the dread fort like an ink tide, blotting the stars and drowning the moon behind strata of charcoal cloud. On the icy ramparts, the flayed man banners cracked like whips in a wind that smelt of blood, soot, and old secrets long buried beneath hard northern earth. Ramsay Snow prowled those battlements barefoot, a pale shadow amid the gloom, his smile a crescent knife of moonlight the storm could not wholly mask. Every few steps he paused to listen, to the distant thunder of siege engines assembling in the dark fields beyond Barrowton, to the mutters of fear that seeped up from the kennels, to the faint, wet cough of his prisoner chained in a tower cell where the chill gnawed bone. Sansa Stark's voice had broken to raw threads 2 nights past, yet a guttering candle still burned in her window. Ramsay watched its tremble through lattice glass and wondered whether she prayed or cursed. He rather hoped for curses. They added savor. Behind him, Maester Tybalt climbed slowly, keys clinking. "My lord, ravens fly. Stannis camps no more than 18 miles. Robb Stark 2 leagues to his rear." Ramsay's lips peeled back. "Father, Lord Bolton convenes council at first light." "Let him convene," Ramsay murmured. "When dawn breaks, we paint the snow pink." He turned toward the maester, eyes like frozen mirrors. "Fetch more torches. The hounds grow restless." Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Stannis Baratheon's war tents sprawled across rolling ground south of the shivering forest, their crestlines glowing ember beneath watchfires. From a rise overlooked by a toppled weirwood trunk, the king surveyed the Dreadfort's black silhouette. Murk hid the flayed men from his gaze, yet he could feel them, twisting, leering, daring him forward. Lightbringer leaned near the map table, its dull edge twitching with each gust as though yearning to kiss Ramsay's throat. Robb Stark approached through crunching hoarfrost, gray wind padding at his heel. The direwolf halted before the sword, hackles rising. Robb's face still bore the half-healed cut from Barrowfield, a thin line running from temple to jaw like a measure of the war's toll. "Roose dispatched riders toward the last river," Robb said without preamble, "seeking Karstark cattle." Stannis drew the kerchief of nightshade from his helm's rim to wipe sleet from his lashes. "Let them chase meat. We starve them of courage." He tapped a stylus upon the hide map. "At D. On the trebuchet's firestones steeped in pitch. Tents of canvas, stables of straw. Bolton fire fears no man. Let us return courtesy in flame." Robb's knuckles whitened upon the table edge. "If Sansa is within those walls, if Stannis cut. Ramsay's letter was bait. He will not risk a hostage with my engines ranged. Robb stared at the dark bastion, jaw clenched. I must believe she lives. Believe, Stannis allowed, but do not falter. He met the young king's eyes, saw echoes of Ned Stark, iron steady, tempered by grief. When the breach opens, Grey Wind runs first. You after. Robb inclined head in grim assent. Howland Reed materialized from shadows, water still beating his cloak, as if the marsh clung to his skin. My Crannog men flooded the west palisade trench. Ramsay's horse will sink to breast. Stannis acknowledged with a nod. Good. At first light, banners form wedge. Stark at spear point, Umber's flank, Stormlanders press center. He looked to his war council. Ser Richard Horp, Great John Umber, Galbart Glover, and the onion skull crest worn now by Davos's eldest son, Dale, who had joined the host with a detachment of King's Landing spears. The men nodded, some with fire in eyes, others with exhaustion tempered by resolve. Catelyn Stark entered then, wrapped in a gray mantle. She carried a bundle, a raven scroll marked with axes crossing Crimson Field. She handed it to Stannis. From Deepwood, Asha Greyjoy offers passage for grain barges in exchange for safe conduct south. Stannis broke the seal. Inside, neat script declared the Ironborn would abandon northern shores if allowed to sail home with their plunder. He crushed the parchment. Plunder is blood. He tossed it to the brazier where it curled and blackened. Greyjoys will answer when winter wanes. Catelyn's shoulders sagged, yet she said nothing. She understood there were too many fires already blazing and only so much water to spare. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Before dawn's first ash-gray hint, the siege engines groaned to life. 6 monstrous trebuchets, constructed of storm-felled oak, bound with iron bands salvaged from Dragonstone's broken galleys, swung their long arms, slinging barrels of pitch that arced like black comets. When they burst against the Dreadfort's curtain wall, flames blossomed green where wildfire-soaked mortar met incendiary oil. Snow hissed and melted, sending plumes of steam skyward. Bolton crossbows answered, bolts rattling off pavises. Ramsay's voice shrieked above the din, urging his men to hold, promising skins for banners. Arrows whistled. Stormlander shields rose as a forest, absorbing the storm. Stannis spurred forward at the van, Lightbringer now blazing, its orange flare flickering across helmets, painting visor slits as burning eyes. Shields parted for him, a living tide forging after the sword's blaze. Robb's wolf banners surged alongside. Grachan's roar shook frost from the pines. The first assault struck the outer palestra, an earthen rampart lined by sharpened stakes. Reed's marsh spearmen waded through freezing runnels to tear at palisade timbers, while Umber axemen split stakes, clearing a breach. Bolton men hurled pots of boiling tar. The rain of fire caught 2 Stormlanders, who fell screaming into snow that steamed around them. Above, Ramsay stood atop the gatehouse, bow in hand, loosing arrow after black arrow. Every shot found a mark: a reedman's throat, a Sellsword's eye, a squire fumbling with ladder rungs. Ramsay laughed at each. Stannis saw him, an obscene silhouette against the fire-lit sky. Rearing, he set Shadowfax upon a berm of packed snow rammed hard against wall base. "Ladder," he barked. 2 squires shoved one forward. With one gauntlet hand, he heaved upward, planting rung upon stone, then began to climb, Lightbringer strapped across back. Bolts clanged off his pauldron, off helm. One pierced his thigh between plates, but he ascended, relentless. On the parapet, Ramsay drew again. The arrowhead gleamed, barbed and wicked. He sighted a long shaft, then jerked as Grey Wind vaulted the berm, jaws snapping. Direwolf claws found rammed earth foothold, launching onto the walkway. Ramsay staggered. The arrow hissed, missing Stannis by hand's breadth. Grey Wind ripped a pikeman's throat and bounded on, eyes fixed upon the bastard. Stannis gained the summit. Lightbringer roared as he drew. The blade's heat warped snowflakes into frantic spirals. Ramsay backpedaled, reaching for scimitar. Steel met living fire. Ramsay shrieked, dropping the blade, fingers blistering. He spun, fled along battlement toward the keep tower. Grey Wind gave chase. Stannis followed 3 paces behind, but a squad of Dreadfort guards interposed, tower shields painted flayed men. Lightbringer cut arcs of molten gold. Shields burst aflame. Men fell screaming into yards below, yet each kill slowed him. Ramsay vanished through an arched doorway, iron-shod door slamming. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At ground level, Robb's infantry breached a sally gate earlier sabotaged by Reed's men. Umbers stormed the yard, hacking at kennel cages. Hounds leapt loose, attacking friend and foe in equal frenzy. Barrowfield's freed prisoners, armed with scavenged axes, surged behind, vengeance burning. Roose Bolton emerged atop the main stair, half-armor donned, eyes flat as snow glare. With him marched 20 household guards in scale of boiled leather. He raised a flayed-skin banner draped on lance. "Winterfell is lost, Wolf," he called to Robb. "Yield, and I will spare your mother." Robb spat blood-speckled snow. "Your son will answer first." He signaled Greatjon. The Umber chief roared, charged. Spears bristled. Greatjon took 2 in pauldron but kept coming, cleaving left, right until Bolton line wavered. Roose stepped back, motion precise. Trumpets sounded. Bolton cavalry boiled from the east gate to flank Starkfoot. Yet pikes appeared. Stormlander reserves under Ser Arnold formed hedgehog. Horses crashed upon spear points, shrieking. Mud churned into crimson slurry. Across the yard, a kennel burst inward as flaming brand fell through roofing. Hounds erupted, howls splitting dawn. Prisoners scattered. The chaos suited no side, save the chaosborn. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In a smoke-choked stairwell, Stannis kicked open Ramsay's bolt-barred door. Grey Wind's growls echoed ahead, joined by agonized squeals. Stannis pushed through gloom into a circular chamber strewn with skins, some cured, some fresh. In the center, Ramsay knelt beneath the direwolf's weight, left arm between Grey Wind's jaws while right hand scrabbled for a dagger. Blood spurted with each heartbeat. Ramsay saw Stannis and smiled through pain. "Come, king. Claim hide." He rammed dagger into Grey Wind's haunch. The wolf yelped, stumbled back, wounding Ramsay's arm deeper. Ramsay lurched to feet, blood streaming. Lightbringer flickered. Ramsay hissed at the heat. "Burn me then," he taunted. "But my father will." The blade flashed. Ramsay's dagger arm fell away at elbow, thunking wetly. He stared, expression almost scientific. "Bright," he murmured. "So bright." He raised stump, arterial sprays painting flayed-skin walls. He sank to knees. "Cold, father." Stannis watched life leave those pale eyes. "Justice," he said. Grey Wind snarled approval. Lightbringer's glow dimmed, sated. Stannis turned, blade low. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Roose Bolton sensed defeat the moment Ramsay's banner ceased its obscene flapping upon the highest tower. He saw flares of firelight through the tower windows, heard rumors of Grey Wind loose, saw Stormlander ravens perched unmolested upon gatehouse roof. He calculated survival in heartbeats. With a curt command, he withdrew toward Godswood Gate, leaving rear guard to die. Glover spears closed. Within minutes, Roose was ringed. He shed sword, raised empty hands. "I yield to the king in the north," he announced. Robb advanced, hair matted, sword nicked. He looked to Stannis, who emerged onto balcony above, Lightbringer casting orange sheen. The older king gave a single nod. Robb faced Bolton. "Where is my sister?" Roose's lips twitched. "Alive, last I saw. Your bastard brother spurt her away south weeks prior. Harrenhal, perhaps." Catelyn gasped behind Robb. Fury stabbed him, but he mastered it. He gestured to guards. "Chain him." Stannis descended, Grey Wind at heel. The noise of battle faded, replaced by crackling flames of torched kennels. Prisoners embraced weeping. Stormlanders raised stag banners above the ruined gate. Atop the parapet, Lightbringer thrust skyward. A cheer rose, wolf throats, storm throats, reed calls, melding into a single howl. Dreadfort had fallen. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. That night, Catelyn knelt in the Dreadfort's small sept, hands clasped before a rough stone mother carved by some forgotten mason. Candles sputtered in cold draughts. She prayed for Sansa, for her sons, for the realm that now lay balanced on blades and shadows. Outside, the Victorious roared in ale-soaked revel. Yet within these walls ghosts whispered. Robb stood in the doorway, helmet under arm. "We ride south when wounds mend," he said quietly. "Harrenhal." Catelyn nodded, tears silent. "Find her. Bring her home." She rose, placing a palm upon his cheek. He felt again like the boy who once begged to follow Ned on progress to White Harbor. But he did not say that. He could not. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Stannis convened war council in the Dreadfort's great hall. Emptied of flaying racks, scrubbed with snow and ash until stone floors bled no stain. Robb, Catelyn, Reed, Davos, Ser Richard, Greatjon, Glover, and Ser Arnold formed the circle. Maps unrolled across flayed-skin table newly draped in stark gray and Baratheon black. Bolton broken, Fry next, Stannis began. Twin towers straddle the trident. We strike swift before Tywin crosses mountains. Davos pointed to sea lanes, but Tyrell grain convoys stall again. Ironborn raids choke coasts. King's Landing faces bread riots. Stannis's jaw set. We march south, but detach riders to White Harbor. Lord Manderley sends shipload of oats. Reed's men escort. Catelyn spoke. Lord Walder Frey holds Edmure Tully hostage. A siege endangers family. Greatjon spat. Frey's no family. Robb lifted hand. We rescue Edmure under cover. The twins' towers crumble if their bridge breaks. Flood the crossing with wildfire from Stannis' stores. Davos grimaced. Wildfire scarce and perilous. Stannis weighed. A small cask by skilled sappers. The bridge falls, walls isolate. He tapped the map. After Frey falls, we turn to Harrenhal. Tywin will try to reinforce. We hold river, trap him between lion and dragon. Dragon? Galbart asked. Reed spoke. Ravens whisper the Silver Queen sails to Westeros. Dragons live. Silence rippled. Candle wax hissed. Stannis' eyes narrowed. Then time is fire. We burn our path before her's light sky. Council adjourned. Plans etched in ink and blood. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In King's Landing, Prince Oberyn Martell reclined within a silk pavilion erected on Maegor's holdfast rooftop, sipping arbor gold that tasted faintly of smoke. Across from him, Tyrion Lannister sat in irons, one eye blackening from a scuffle during capture at Rosby. The Red Viper smiled. "You are a hard dwarf to net." Tyrion flexed swollen wrists. "I prefer free range." "Your tongue remains sharp," Oberyn said. "Good. I need truths cut cleanly." He poured a second cup. "Tell me of your father's plans. I trade your life for Dornish vengeance." Tyrion weighed options, the sword overhead, the trap below. He chose words like stepping stones across wildfire. "My father will wed Frey girls to every envoy he courts. Bleed Reach, bribe Iron Bank, strangle Grain, unleash Ironborn. He rallies Westermen at Casterly with new gold from Clegane mines." He sipped wine, sighed. "But coin cannot buy winter's mercy. He underestimates the dark." Oberyn listened, expression feline. "And what of Cersei's death? Did his heart crack?" "Tywin's heart is cast from redstone," Tyrion said softly. "It may fissure, but it will not break." The Red Viper leaned back. "Then we will break it for him." He unlocked Tyrion's shackles. "You will write a letter, dwarf, one that lures Lord Tywin to a place of my choosing." Tyrion rubbed wrists, chuckled bitterly. "If you seek a Lannister trap, prepare for teeth. Poison has teeth sharper still." Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At Castle Black, Jon Snow met with Tormund Giantsbane in the old mess hall, its rafters thick with frost. Tormund smacked a tankard on the plank. "Your crow brothers itch for blood," he said. Mine itch for wives warm as summer. Jon managed half a smile. Let's not trade one itch for another. He spread parchment. A proposed settlement south of the Bridge of Skulls, inside the gift's boundary. Your people build huts here, farm if soil allows. In exchange, you scout north passages. Warn us if the dead stir. Tormund's scratched beard. Some'll say we bent knee. You bend knee to no king, Jon answered. Only to the living. The wildling's grin split snowy beard. Words worth drinking. He raised the tankard. Jon did too. They drank. Yet later that night, Bowen Marsh convened black brothers in the rookery's dark corners. The boy Lord Snow gives land to raiders, he said. He'd crown wolves, coddle red witches. Our watch unravels. Voices murmured assent. In one hooded gaze burned murder. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Across the narrow sea, Daenerys stood upon the ramparts of Pentos's moon tower. Drogon roost behind her, eyes like furnaces. Below, Illyrio Mopatis's gardens gleamed silver. Ser Jorah approached bearing sealed parchment. A raven from Bravos, he said. The Iron Bank funds Stannis still. Yet Tycho Nestoris invites your grace to negotiate alternative loans. Dany stroked Drogon's warm scales. Gold is weight, dragons are wind. Let the bank weigh. She unfurled another scroll. News of Bolton's fall. Frey siege rumors. Stannis allied with northern wolves. He clears my path to the throne, she mused. But what path does he leave for me? Jorah's brow creased. He fights for life. So will Westeros love him. Love. She remembered Meereen's perfidy, Astapor's ruin. Love is a chain heavier than gold. Fear is a spear. She turned to the dragon. I will bring both. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Euron Greyjoy held revel in Arbor's plundered sept. Grape-stained altar his throne. Around him reavers drank, women wept, and bards plucked harps strung with catgut. Euron raised a skull-shaped goblet. To storms yet to drown us, he toasted. A scout staggered in, soaked. Red wine fleet returns, 30 sail strong, escorted by Tyrell Dromons. Euron's smile widened. Let them come. The sea is my bride. She devours lovers. He licked wine from lips. But soon I'll court a fiercer bride, dragon's flame. He gestured to a witch priestess, gaunt and veiled. She stepped forward, presenting a jar of black glass. Dragon glass fused with some oily substance. Swirls of dark smoke roiled inside. Pyromancer's gift, she rasped. Burns even on water. Euron's good eye gleamed. Dark fire for green sea. Let us teach the Reachmen a song of drowning flame. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. 3 weeks after the Dreadfort's fall, the Allied host marched west under banners stitched anew. A crowned stag argent over black, a leaping direwolf on snow, and beneath both the silver triskele of House Reed binding the seam. They wound down the White Knife Valley, past villages where small folk knelt in thawing fields, lifting hopeful faces. Stannis rode at front, Lightbringer sheathed yet warm. Robb at his flank acknowledged cheers with solemn nods. Victory's sweetness tempered by a sister still lost. In White Harbor, Lord Wyman Manderly welcomed them with 15 enormous meat pies filled with savory venison. At the feast, he knelt before Stannis. I bent knee to boy kings and lion queens, yet they starved our city. Now I bend knee to justice. He rose, presenting a parchment. Pledge of grain fleets to King's Landing, guarded by Manderly galleys painted with wolfshed and stag both. Stannis clasped his hand. Davos boarded the first of those ships that night, bound south with dispatches. Bolton broken, grain secured, Frey soon to fall. As sails bellied with wind, he gazed northward where Aurora glimmered faint. He prayed for calm seas and calm hearts, but storms loomed. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At the Twins, Walder Frey paced his drafty solar, bones creaking, when a raven scratched its sill bearing news of Barrowfield defeat. Dreadfort fallen, Bolton captured. Walder hurled the message into Hearth. Buttercakes, he shrieked. Traitors on every shore. He summoned sons, grandsons, all pale copies of his spite, and ordered bridges raised, gates barred, archers posted. But behind sneers flickered fear. The phrase had not built walls to keep out gods. Deep beneath, a worker tending kegs felt a vibration, subtle, rhythmic. Then a gout of green flame erupted as wildfire lit the underbridge fuse carefully planted by Stannis' sappers disguised as ale merchants. With a crack like dragon's roar, the massive stone central pier split. Blocks tumbled, iron chains snapped. The double span sagged, then collapsed into the trident with a tsunami of spray and shattered stone. Walder Frey rushed to balcony in time to see his life's work sink, his safe passage drown, and across the far bank, Stark scouts lighting signal torches. He sank to knees, croaking prayers no god would answer. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In Harrenhal's haunted halls, where melted towers wept constant tears, Peter Baelish entertained a gold and crimson envoy, Ser Adam Marbrand, bearing Tywin's writ of alliance. Candles flickered in cracked mirrors. Each reflection told a different lie. Lord Tywin invites you to restore Harrenhal as Lannister vassal, Marbrand said. Titles, coin, and casterly friendship. Littlefinger sipped wine. Friendship, like coin, is spent once. He unfurled another letter, Oberyn's script promising Dornish spears and Myrish gold if Harrenhal opened gates to Stannis. He smiled, weighing futures. A coin tossed in air spins prettily, he mused. But I prefer to own the wind. He bowed to Marbrand, voice velvet. I shall ponder Lord Tywin's generous offer. The envoy departed unaware of the Sellsword host hidden in Harrenhal's barns. Banners of Baelish Mockingbird ready to bear whichever arms prevailed. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Spring's first true warmth touched King's Landing the very day Davos's grain fleet anchored. Holds brimming with White Harbor oats and Wyman's secret spices. Wharfmen cheered, gaunt cheeks rounding. Hans Seaworth oversaw unloading personally. Boots powdered with flour by dusk. That night, riots averted, he climbed the Tower of the Hand to read Raven scrolls. One, written in Oberyn's flourishing hand, spoke of Lannister trickery and a dwarf's schemes. Another, sealed with Shireen's seal, a shy drawing of a cat, brought tears. I study Valyrian, father. Maester Pylus says dragon's speech warms cold nights. Come home soon and read with me. Davos smiled sadly, pocketed the letter. Then a third raven flew in as he doused candles. Message from Jon Snow. The dead tested the wall again. Red woman's flames falter. Urgent need dragonglass, wildling loyalty fragile. Davos closed eyes. So many fires, so little water. He resolved to send 10 wagons of obsidian candles scavenged from alchemist stores north with King's escort. But more than stone and flame, the wall needed unity. For that, only kings could answer. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At Winterfell, newly liberated, smiths reforged gates with iron from broken bolton blades. Children played snow tag in courtyards blackened by fire but cleaned by hope. Sansa was still absent, Bran still missing, Rickon lost to rumor. Yet laughter returned, tentative. On the parapets, Gendry, Lord of the Blackwater by decree, over Luke. The fields where Stark and Stormlander banners intermingled, his hammer resting across broad shoulders. He felt the castle's pulse, as if every stone remembered old oaths. Beside him stood Shireen Baratheon, cheeks rosy in the crisp air. She watched Raven's wheel. Father will like it here, she said. Plenty of snow for stories. Gendry chuckled. Snows for shoveling, princess. She wrinkled nose. He added gently, we'll keep your father's seat warm. Shireen traced the rough battlement, feeling north wind tug her hair. It smells different here, like wood smoke and wolves. And justice, Gendry said, gazed distant toward the south where war still thundered. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. South of the neck, Tywin Lannister read word of Frey Bridge ruin. His face hardened into death mask. The river is lost, he told Kevin. We march by the Golden Tooth, but Stannis controls King's Road. Tywin turned, eyes glowing furnace hot. Then we carve a new road in blood. He summoned messengers, ordering bannermen to assemble at Lannisport, 20,000 fresh and grim. Gold Hill poured coins for Sellsword companies. Clegane's brutal hounds rode at vanguard. Tywin drafted a missive to the Citadel, urging immediate crowning of Tommen as king on the wall to undermine Stannis' claim. Politics would wage war while swords clashed. Yet as he sealed wax, he coughed. A sharp crack. Blood flecked his handkerchief. He stared at it, thoughtful. Even rock bleeds given time. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. On the summer sea, Euron's Silence met Redwine flagship Queen's Grace in combat under a sunset that stained waves crimson. The pyromancer's jar shattered upon the Reach galley's hull, black flames crawling across water, clinging to oarsmen who leapt screaming but could not submerge the fire. Euron laughed as masts toppled in nightmarish conflagration. News of the burning tide would race north, chilling Mace Tyrell's heart. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At the wall, Jon Snow knelt before Lord Commander Jeor Mormont's sickbed. The old bear's eyes fluttered open. "Hold the line, boy," he rasped. "Promise me." "I promise," Jon whispered. Mormont coughed, a ragged final breath, then was still. A hush fell. Outside, horns sounded. The election of a new Lord Commander by ancient vote. Brothers gathered in the courtyard, torches fluttering. Candidates stood. Bowen Marsh, Cotter Pike, Othel Yarwick. Tormund watched among free folk, uneasy. When the tally ended, a shocked murmur spread. Thousands of black stones bearing names were counted. Snows, fires, shadows, and by one vote's margin, Jon Snow was chosen. Marsh's face blanched. Melisandre appeared at edge of light, ruby glowing. Jon looked at the brothers, some hopeful, some wary, some hateful. He nodded. "We will hold," he promised the night. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. From the frost fangs a cold wind blew, carrying whispers to the shard beneath the night fort. Pulse stronger, fragments knitting. Within that crystalline heart, a shape stirred, no longer a fallen king, but something new, forged by defeat, tempered by hate, hungry for heatless dominion. Ice spidered outward, invisible beneath snow. The wall between living and dead grew thin. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Far away on Pentos's pier, Daenerys guided Drogon into the air. His roar shook warehouses. Beneath her, ships unfurled black sails bearing the three-headed dragon. Across the water, Westeros waited. Kingdom of broken crowns, cracked thrones, and simmering fire. Between the Silver Queen and the Stag King, only smoke lay. And winter, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In the chill hour before dawn, Stannis Baratheon stood alone upon Winterfell's battlement, gazed southward. Lightbringer rested unsheathed across gloved palms, its ember now soft, expectant. Snowflakes drifted onto the blade, hissing to nothing. He thought of Shireen's letter, of Davos's burdens, of Jon's call for obsidian, of Bolton's blood yet staining his gauntlet seams. A step behind him, Melisandre approached, scarlet cloak billowing. "The fire grows thin," she said. "The darkness gathers strength untold." Stannis did not look back. "I have given steel, sweat, blood. What more does your god demand?" She touched the sword's flat. The ruby at her throat flared briefly, then dulled. "Sacrifice." Stannis's head bowed, snow dusting his brow like ash. "When sacrifice becomes madness, who judges?" "The true king judges himself," she answered. He turned then, eyes hollow ember. "Then let him do so in silence." He sheathed Lightbringer, walked down the stair, leaving footprints that filled quickly with falling snow. Melisandre watched the empty battlement, wind teasing flame from her crimson sleeve. "Night closes," she whispered to the gray sky. "Let the dawn choose its champion." Below, Winterfell stirred. Smiths stoking forges, ravens taking wing, banners flapping anew. Across rivers and mountains, foes mustered, alliances shifted, dragons flew, and shards of ice dreamed of crowns. The game poised upon razor's edge, its pieces ablaze with purpose and dread. And somewhere, In the hush between heartbeat and steel, both gods and ghosts leaned close to see which light would falter first, and whether the fires of men could burn long enough to outlast the longest night. A hush as soft as snowfall drifted over Winterfell's bailey, while dawn's first embers smoldered behind the broken eastern wall. The keep still bore scars of Bolton torches, char streaks on pale stone, iron hinges fused by heat, yet everywhere new life stirred. Sparks flaming beneath the smith's hammer, fresh straw strewn for horses, the laugh of a stable girl who scarcely believed she lived to see rebuilding. The air smelt of pine smoke and frost-brittle roses cut from Wintertown gardens, placed on every windowsill to honor the dead. Within the great hall, Stannis Baratheon sat at a trestle table strewn with parchment. A candle guttered low, feeding tiny flames along its wick until only a marble-hard nub remained. When it finally expired, the last wax tear clung like glass to the iron holder. Lightbringer lay unsheathed across his knees, ember edge glowing just enough to read by. He had not slept. Visions flitted each time he blinked, Shireen smiling while skimming a letter, Melisandre's ruby glowing like a red star sinking beneath endless snow, Jon Snow's raven scribble of urgent need. Outside, ravens cawed harsh greetings to new light. A soft knock. Davos entered, road dust still coating his cloak after a month's voyage and 4 days' hard ride. He bowed hastily. "Grain delivered, your grace." White Harbor convoys sail twice weekly under Manderley banners. King's Landing draws breath again. Stannis inclined head, carving no relief upon flint features. And the wall. Davos passed a sealed length of hide. News from Lord Commander Snow. The dead attacked twice more, turned aside by red magic and by dragonglass pikes supplies thin. Free folk eviction rumors stir brothers against him. The smuggler's eyes flicked to Lightbringer. They need a king. Stannis traced blade edge with gauntlet thumb. Need is a cavern. Give an inch, it yawns wider. He gathered other scrolls. Tyrell pleas for fleet reinforcement against Kraken fire. Baelish's offers of neutrality. Tycho's balance sheets tipped red. A Dornish summons to treat in Storm's End. Realm fractures faster than we mend. A ship takes on water from many seams, Davos said, yet stays afloat if the pumps work unceasing. Stannis allowed the faintest grunt, a sound that might be agreement. He set quill to vellum, drafting short lines. Prepare convoy of obsidian and spear shafts. Dispatch to Eastwatch under guard. Have the hand oversee. He sanded the page, sealed it. Obsessed with dragonglass. A new voice murmured from the arch. Melisandre glided in, scarlet cloth whispering like distant flames. Stone alone will not halt the night. Only king's blood. Silence, Stannis snapped. The wall holds on faith as much as flame. We feed both. He rose, sheathing sword. Ready the army. We march south at week's turn. Davos blinked. South? To the Twins or Harrenhal? Neither. Stannis strode toward the door. To Moat Cailin, then Saltpans, then King's Landing. Tyrell fleet burns. Redwine begs succor. Ironborn choke grain lanes. I will break the Kraken's back. Reopen the sea. Melisandre's ruby throbbed. The Kraken is but wave spray against darkness. We must keep eyes north. Eyes north, feet south. He halted, eyes like smoked glass. A crown answers every roar. If dragons sail, lions march, and ice creeps, I stand where realm cries loudest. To Davos he added, send Raven to Lord Manderley. 10 galleys armed with scorpions sail with us. Gendry reforges catapults for deck use. Davos bowed. It will be done. Stannis departed, boots echoing through stone corridors now hung with new banners. Stag and wolf entwined by reed knots, the old direwolf of Stark alone above the dais. He pushed into morning chill. Robb Stark drilled archers on the west wall, a blur of gray cloak and raised longbow. Great John barked corrections so loud they rattled shutters. Gray wind paced atop the rampart like a ghost wolf guarding dreams. Stannis watched, thinking of wolves at sea. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In the Godswood, Catelyn Stark knelt beneath the heart tree's red leaves unfurling for spring. Crimson petals drifted onto dark water pooled around roots, each like a blood-inked tear. She prayed for Sansa, for Arya, for Bran and Rickon whose fates hid beyond mist. Wind rustled through leaves with a whisper almost like Bran's laughter when he first climbed the broken tower. Footsteps on needles. Howland Reed appeared, reed cloak blending with moss. "Lady Stark," he greeted, voice gentle as falling snow. The river sings new verses. Scouting cranes found tracks near Maidenpool. Girl's small feet, guarded by tall man limping. Catelyn looked up sharply. "The Hound." Reed nodded. "Alive, it seems, and she in his care." Tears welled but did not spill. "Bring her home. My cranes fly swift," Reed promised. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. East of the Iron Islands, Tywin Lannister's host wound through the Gold Road, helms glinting beneath hazy peat fires. Scouts reported Fry Bridge collapse, Bolton ruin, Tyrell delays. Tywin rode at Column's Head, the warhammer of House Clegane displayed behind to deter ambush. Each breath rasped faintly. The cough lingered longer now. Kevin rode to flank. News from King's Landing. Grain ships safe, riots quelled. The dwarf writes cryptic letters from Oberyn's custody. He claims possession of a secret that could break Stannis' line. Tywin's eyes narrowed. Tyrion's secrets are often venomous to their keeper. Ensure my brother in the capital secures them. He spurred, mind already dissecting Stannis' next moves. Wolves and stags allied, they must be split. Perhaps the Kraken could twist knife deeper. Letters flew to Pike, promising gold and independence for a strike upon Gulltown and supply granaries at Duskendale. Let the stag chase a dozen storms. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. The Iron Fleet gathered at Oakenshield's Cove. Wrecked Reach galleys still smoldering on the beach. Euron Greyjoy stood astride Silence's prow, a blood-slick patch covering the eye lost to some dark pact. Northmen march, he proclaimed to reavers crowding sand. Lions bleed. The sea loves chaos, so we shall spread it like seed on storm-tilted fields. Victarion came forward, reading a fresh raven. Tywin Lannister offers coin to strike Gulltown, Duskendale, Deep Dean. Euron laughed, arms wide. A lion buys a kraken's teeth, until the kraken eats the lion. He turned to the witch priestess. Prepare black windfire. To the crews he roared, set course for Gulltown. We'll reap coin, then burn the purse. 1,000 ironborn cheered. Gulls rose shrieking from the cliffs, wheeling above masts that rumbled like blunt thunder. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At Castle Black, Jon Snow donned the sable and silver cloak of Lord Commander, though its weight felt heavier than a giant's chain. The choosing fires still smoldered in the yard, their smoke curling past maesters bearing scrolls to record vows. Samwell hovered, face a tremble of pride and fear. Bowen Marsh knelt reluctantly. "My sword is yours," he said, words brittle as rhyme. Cotter Pike nodded curt respect. Yarwick clapped Jon on shoulder, then returned to the old armory where barricades still smelled of burnt tar. Wildlings watched from the shadows, suspicious yet curious. Would this young crow lead like a tyrant or a brother? Jon stepped upon a crate, voice louder than he knew possible. "Brothers of the Night's Watch, free folk, the dead gather, again they will test. We cannot splinter. From this hour, rations divide in equal shares, black and free alike. Swords strike north, not each other. Any man who raises steel at a friend will face the wall's justice." Murmurs rose, some supportive, some mutinous. Tormund Giantsbane lifted a tankard. "Wall's justice be damned. If dead come, we'll drink them." Laughter rumbled, tension easing. Above, Melisandre watched, eyes glowing. Later she approached Jon within the Lord Commander's chambers, once Gior's. "You lead with hope," she said. "Hope kindles heat, until sacrifice snuffs it or feeds it brighter." Jon's jaw set. "No more talk of burning children. Not here." She inclined head, red curls brushing cheeks. "The fire chooses its own fuel. Beware when the wind blows hardest. You may find flint beneath your feet." She left him with that warning echoing. In the rookery, ravens took flight bearing Jon's edict. Request for dragonglass shipments, recrimination of mutinies, plea for Southron kingship support. One raven he sent privately to Arya's last known haunt, asking word if the little sister still breathed. He sealed it with plain wax, aware hope is frail. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At Harrenhal, Littlefinger's cells words drilled under banners of the mockingbird entwined with golden hands. He walked parapets with Lady Lisa Arryn upon his arm, newly arrived after grieving in the Eyrie. Her wide eyes traced melted towers nervously. "Such dread ruins," she whispered. "Why linger?" Peter's smile was subtle. "A ruin is merely a canvas for fresh paint, my sweet, and castles do not kneel. Men do. Here men flock to the promise of coin untainted by old oaths." He pointed toward the God's Eye Lake where barges unloaded crates marked with Bravosi seals. No coin flows swifter than that of banks hedging bets. He opened a ledger. Iron bank loans split between Stannis and House Baelish Enterprises. When two kings owe, the banker who owns collateral stands crowned, albeit unseen. Below, gaunt men stacked barrels of wildfire traded from Euron's estranged alchemists. Above, sparrows perched, chirping within cracks. Peter listened to the birdsong and the slow creak of power shifting, sound sweeter than any harp. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. South of the neck, Stannis' host marched through green fields where crocuses bowed under boots. Gendry rode at vanguard, hammer slung, leading a new unit of Winterfell smiths armed with half-forged blades and resolve. Shireen sat pillion behind him, reading a Valyrian tablet aloud, her laughter surprising many. Soldiers parted to let them pass, some crossing hearts. Princess and Hammer lord a sign of better times. Past Moat Cailin, they encountered salt air ruffling banners. In a narrow valley overlooking the Bight lay salt pans, burnt half a year earlier by raiders. Now smoke again rose, but from carpenters' fires. Davos's grain wagons had reached starving small folk. Children ran to the road shouting thanks. Stannis halted column, ordering barley porridge ladled from supply carts into chipped bowls. For an hour war paused. Men realized they fed the realm not only with swords. Even Melisandre paused her sermons, watching flames of cooking hearths with contemplative gaze. That evening, by a tide-washed cliff, Stannis gathered his captains. King's Landing must hold. Ironborn strike east coast. Tyrell fleet crippled. We sail from White Harbor on the morrow. He traced parchment sea routes. We break Kraken, secure grain lanes. Wolves march south across the Green Fork to harry Tywin's flank. Reed scouts shadow lions. The realm will squeeze the lion in a vice of iron and ice. Robb nodded. My mother rides to Riverrun to rally Tully levies. Edmure freed from Fry dungeons rejoins banner. We meet Tywin on Red Fork in a moon's time. Stannis looked to Davos. The hand commands fleet action. To Gendry, forge scorpion bolts tipped with dragonglass. Abomination steel pierces iron-born hulls. To Dale Seaworth, chart shipping schedule. Slip past silence at dusk with decoy lantern formations. The Onion's sons saluted. Plans set, banners shook. In the distance, a storm brewed purple above the sea's edge. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. On the summer sea that same night, Daenerys faced her captains aboard the flagship Dragon's Mercy. Grey Worm laid scrolls upon the chart table. Reports of Ironborn raids, Tyrell pleas, Lannister marches. Yora read them with hooded gaze. Dany placed a hand on the map. The parchment crinkled. If Westeros floods with krakens, lions, wolves and stags, she mused. Let dragons be the tide that washes all dull banners away. She called for sails trimmed and set a new course. To Dorne, where Prince Doran whispered of ports untouched by kraken fire and spears eager for vengeance. She would land where Martell banners wave suns, then march north with dragons overhead. Let kings parley with fire. Missandei asked, and Stannis? If he holds the capital for the realm, let him keep it until I ask. Dany's violet eyes shone. A throne is not given. It is taken when fear bows to wonder. Across the water Drogon roared, great wings casting shadows upon the waves. Sailors crossed hearts, whispering prayers to a dozen gods. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. On the twilit shore outside Gulltown, Euron Greyjoy launched his surprise. Black windfire jars catapulted in arcs, shattering upon stone quay. Flames of oily darkness licked water, climbing hulls, refusing to drown. Red wine screamed as ships ignited in eerie purple. The sea seemed to burn like tar. Gulltown's harbor erupted into a cauldron, smoke visible for leagues. Grain warehouses crackled, embers swirling into night. The Raven reached Stannis at anchor outside White Harbor dawn of third day. Deck planks shuddered with men's curses. Davos slammed fist to rail. This cannot stand. Stannis's eyes were blue steel. Silence dies. We set sail. He ordered fleet toward Gulltown, scorpions loaded. Shireen watched from forecastle, clutching her cat toy. Gendry hammered final bolts, sparks flying. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Back at the wall, Jon Snow stood beside Tormund on the icy walkway. The aurora blazed brighter tonight, green-violet, a pulse of pale blue at its heart. Never seen it like that, Tormund muttered. Melisandre appeared, face ghostly in shifting lights. The shard wakes, she breathed. The Nighthart's new king forms.
Jon's Scoot clenched.
Then we strike first. He convened council, ordering a ranging of 100 men, black and free alike, to ride with dragonglass and wildfire grenades to the Frostfang caverns where children once danced. Sam protested risk. Jon tightened cloak. Risk must meet risk. He led the party himself, Longclaw at hip. Before dawn, they vanished into the haunted forest. Behind, the wall loomed, a titan of ancient ice under alien sky. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. On the Trident's fords, Tywin's vanguard clashed with Greyjohn's rearguard. Steel rang, rivers ran red fields. Yet Greyjohn's delaying action worked. The lions slowed while wolves darted away toward Riverrun to link with Tully banners. Kevin urged pursuit. Tywin coughed into silk, eyes watering. We do not chase shadows, he rasped. We set traps. He ordered crossbowmen fortify the ruins of Maidenpool. If rogue, hound and stark girl passed, nets would spring. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Far east at Bravos, Tycho Nestoris received worried letters. Stannis debt swells, Euron burns fleets, dragons cross sea. He penned offers to each, loans to Ironborn, contracts to Daenerys, lines of credit to Tyrell, hedging wagers. The Iron Bank collected on chaos. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At Harrenhal, Littlefinger cracked walnuts while news of Gulltown fire reached his ears. He smiled. A burning harbor drives pigeons inland, he murmured. And every pigeon needs a roost. He wrote to Sansa Stark, wherever she might be, commercially coded instructions. The mockingbird nest awaits the dove. He slipped the letter into a raven's leg, hoping. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Sansa herself trudged muddy tracks south of Maidenpool, disguised as Dornish maid. The hound limped beside, burnt face hidden beneath hood. They heard rumble of battle behind, spied piles of smoke to east. Sandor shook head. Lions fight stags, krakens burn ports. Good time to keep low. Sansa touched hidden dirk, nodded. Yet in her chest a flame grew. Winterfell restored, brother king, mother alive. Every mile closer to home steeled her. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. On the White Knife estuary, Stannis' fleet rode into dawn mists. 10 Manderley galleys, 12 Stormland carracks, 5 Myrish-built Dromons hired by Salador. Banners snapped, crowned stag above crossed hammers, symbol of Baratheon Gendry pact. Deck crews whispered prayers to Seven and R'hllor alike. Davos walked forecastle, checking lashings. He glanced to Shireen reading with Maester Pylus, to Melisandre chanting low near prow, to Stannis still as carved figurehead, Lightbringer at side. Ahead, sea fog parted to reveal horizon aflame where Gulltown burned, orange glow upon sky.
Davos Dalovet bile.
Into hell, he muttered. Stannis' voice carried, quiet but iron. Into duty. He raised sword. Embers flared, catching wind. Sails unfurled, drums thudded, oars dipped like clockwork teeth. The fleet plunged toward war. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. In the Frostfang caves, Jon's ranging party descended torchlit chasms. Dragonglass blades glimmered. The shard's glow deepened with each step, casting blue shadows. Then, silence broke beneath boots. An ice crack reverberation. The cavern's heart opened, a chamber of crystal so cold torches guttered. There stood a pillar of blue ice, inside which a shape coalesced. Tall, armored in mist, eyes black void. Around, corpse-white ravens perched, silent. Jon lifted Longclaw. Flame pots flew, shattering. Green fire whooshed. The pillar hissed, cracked. From within, a voice hollow as wine through tombs. Again, children of ash. Frost radiated, flash-freezing grenades mid-air. Wildling archers fell back. 2 rangers screamed as ice raced across flesh, petrifying. Jon swung, blow striking the pillar. Valyrian steel met unearthly cold. Sparks erupted, shards flew. A fissure split down the figure's chest. Light leaked, dazzling blue. The shape raised a hand. A lance of ice formed. Melisandre's distant prayers echoed in Jon's mind. Fire feeds doubt. He doubted not. He drove Longclaw deeper, roared all names of Stark lost. Ice exploded outward in a scream of winter. Blinding white engulfed. When vision cleared, the chamber ceiling dripped water. The pillar shattered, empty, but shards slithered like living snakes toward cracks, escaping deeper. Jon collapsed to knees, senses buzzing. Around him, brothers gasped in shock. Victory, or only delay? He gathered survivors, ordered retreat. As they climbed out, a tremor ran through mountain as though something vast shifting position. Wounded, not slain. Outside, aurora extinguished. Night sky black. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. At Winterfell, Melisandre jolted awake from trance by the hearth. Fire sputtered emerald, then died, leaving logs smoking gray. She whispered one word, roused. Stannis felt Lightbringer flicker where he stood upon flagship deck. He closed fist around hilt. So many fires, so little light. Fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis, fleur-de-lis. Thus spring shattered upon blades. Kraken fire on eastern sea, dragon wings upon southern wind, lion claws in river mist, wolf fangs glinting under new good snow moon, and a stag bearing living flame into maelstrom. Yet beneath uproar of mortal wars, frost wove secret tendrils, knitting form and will in silence deeper than graves. Day after day, men fought, feasted, mourned, loved, schemed. Night after night, stars watched, indifferent, and the longest night, promise of every old wives' tale, cocked its head like a patient predator, waiting for courage to falter, for alliance to crack, for the tiniest ember to go dark, so it might flood the world with a cold no dragon, no king, no hero could ever burn away. Still the fires burned. The gulls shrieked like frantic ghosts as Stannis Baratheon's fleet sliced through the morning fog that coiled over the bight. Damp shrouds muffled the crash of waves against hulls. Yet every man aboard felt the sea tremble beneath their boots. The herald of battle coming hard upon them. War drums thudded from the forecastles, beating time with the oars. Lanterns hooded in iron swung gently, painting restless shadows across drawn faces. Far ahead, the first red smear of dawn bled across the water, staining the billows of smoke that still curled from the ruins of Gulltown's harbor. Black embers drifted high upon the wind, tiny as midges and twice as bitter. Standing upon the quarterdeck of the Lord of Light, flagship of the Stormlander line, Davos Seaworth squinted through the spyglass, one hand wrapped around the rail to steady against the swaying mast. Flames guttered on distant quays, their orange tongues licking the blackened hulks that bobbed half-sunken at crooked angles. Euron's black-winged longships darted between them like carrion crows feasting on corpses, sails furled to allow silent drifting along the burned wharves. Even at this distance, Davos could almost hear the Ironborn's savage laughter. Stannis stood beside him, plate armor dark with sea salt and Lightbringer sheathed across his back. The weapon's ember edge had warmed visibly since dawn, a dull crimson heartbeat that pulsed beneath the leather bindings of its grip. He said nothing. Words could not shorten the distance, could not still the worry that clenched at Davos's stomach. Shireen remained on the princess's transport astern, watched by Pylus and Gendry's smith squires, yet danger was a tide that respected no deck plan. A sharp cry tore across the water. The forward Lyseni Drummond Maiden's Bounty raised a blue pennant. The enemy sighted. From the fog burst a spearhead of iron-born raiders, their sails marked with red-eyed krakens and twisted glyphs Davos could not name. At their center glided Silence, Euron Greyjoy's dread ship, its masts festooned with the mute, tongueless prisoners that gave the vessel her name. Sunlight hit the polished iron of her ram, and the sea around her seemed to recoil.
Dram se shifted pace.
Archers to the rails, Davos roared. Man the scorpions, load dragonglass. Crew scrambled, feet pounding deck planks. Gendry, stripped to waist despite the chill, hefted a fist-thick scorpion bolt whose point glimmered obsidian black. Sparks crackled where the bolt's metal touched the faint heat emanating from Lightbringer as Stannis drew the sword. The king planted himself mid-deck, blade upraised, a living beacon of red-gold flame that lapped along the fuller without smoke. Sailors' eyes widened. Faith took root where fear had clung. Across the gap, Silence's deck thrummed as Euron's witch priestess unveiled a black glass jar nested in iron claws. Blue fire coiled within its depths. Euron stood near, a patch of glimmering opals covering his left eye, the right glinting with delirious mirth. He lifted a horn carved from sea dragon bone and blew once. Low, mournful, a note that vibrated in the chest more than ear. The Ironborn answered with a growl of axes pounding against shield rims. Then the first slate-black jar sailed skyward, trailing oily vapor. "Loose!" Davos cried. Manderly galley scorpions twanged. Bolts streaked out to intercept. One struck the jar mid-flight. It shattered overhead, erupting in rain of grease-thick fire that clung to air before gravity swirled it downward, sizzling as it hit waves. Pockets ignited on the froth, burning atop water with unnatural vigor. Crewmen swore, hacking at sparking spatters that landed on the deck, stamping them out. Stannis raised Lightbringer and pointed at Silence. "Helm, come about. Spears to starboard. Prepare the hammer." The hammer, Dale Seaworth's gambit, was a ramming tactic. Two flankers forcing foes into a choke where the flagship could drive its iron-shod prow straight through their beam. The fleet wheeled, oars digging deep. Wind snapped the stag banner above. Euron barked laughter that carried over swell, then signaled. Silence surged, rowers beneath deck matching tempo of a booming drum. She cut across the channel like a knife. Behind her, small longships tossed grapnels onto burning wrecks, dragging them into new positions that would funnel the Dromons between floating pyres. The waterway was transforming into a fiery maze. Davos's stomach twisted. He means to box us between his own flames. Stannis's gaze never left Euron. Then we burn him first. Gendry's scorpion released. The obsidian-tipped bolt sang, passing through a veil of smoke, slamming into Silence's starboard quarter. Splinters exploded. Davos saw a raider vanish over the rail. Black fire flared where the bolt pierced hull, as if dragonglass carried its own spiteful magic. Silence staggered but did not slow. Euron swiveled her toward Maiden's Bounty, whose sails glowed ember from stray fire. Another black jar hurled. This time it struck the Dromon's mainmast directly. Flame blossomed azure, racing down ropes like living lightning. Sailcloth whooshed. Sailors leapt screaming. Even as Davos shouted orders, a fresh wind gusted, pushing the burning Dromond across Silence's path. Euron countersignaled. Silence veered, her ram missing Maiden's Bounty by arm's length, but opening her flank to Stannis's arrow formation. "Now!" Stannis thundered. The Baratheon flagship lunged. Water foamed beneath prow. Lightbringer flared brighter, casting ripples of orange across the sea. The iron tip struck Silence amidships with a crunch felt through every rib of the Lord of Light, timbers groaning in sympathy. Hull plates buckled. Tarry smoke belched. Euron's crew reeled. Boarding hooks whistled overhead. Stormlanders hurled planks to bridge the gap. Gendry roared first over, hammer smashing the helm of a mailed reaver. Bone shattered. Behind him poured knights bearing shields quartered in lion and stag. Those Lannister turncloaks who had followed Davos north rather than kneel to Tywin. Their fury was doubled now against their own. Davos scaled a rope net, cutlass clenched. The reek of charred flesh choked breath. He ducked beneath an iron-borne axe, slashed tendon. Man toppled screaming. All about, men grappled, slipped on burning pitch. Stannis vaulted last, Lightbringer carving an incandescent path. Where it met axe or mail, steel melted. A glow haloed the king like dawn made flesh. He moved inexorably toward the quarterdeck where Euron faced him, curved blade in one hand, black steel dueling pistol in the other. The opal patch glittered. False fire come to die? Euron called, voice merry. He fired. The ball spat sparks, ricocheted off Lightbringer in a hiss. No matter. Sea swallows kings. He drew a second pistol. Stannis advanced, but not before the shot boomed. The ball struck his breastplate dead center. Ricocheted with a ringing clang but stove the iron inward, staggering him. Blood trickled at the corner of the king's mouth. He kept coming. Euron's grin held long enough to see Lightbringer cleave down. He parried once, sword edge catching fire, sparks dancing, but the heat forced him back. He retreated to the helm where the witch priestess opened another jar, chanting. Gendry rushed the ladders, hammering free pegs. He vaulted onto the stern castle and crashed into the priestess. The jar slipped, shattered, engulfing them in blue fire. Gendry's leather jerkin caught at once. He screamed but did not falter. He wrapped arms around the witch, hauling her into the sea. Blue fire chased them underwater, hissing out. Only Gendry resurfaced, skin blistered but alive, hammer gone. Euron cursed, spun to strike him, but Stannis reached the top step.
Lightbringer met Euron's blade. Sparks flew.
Again, steel shriek. The Ironborn reeled as heat radiated, eating at leather. He spat, rolled aside, attempted to draw dagger. Too slow. Flame traced his sword to hilt. His glove ignited. He flung the weapon, charred flesh tearing from fingers. Stannis' next stroke took his left forearm below the elbow. Blood sprayed black. Euron staggered, but laughter wheezed out. The storm is naught but waves, he rasped. And waves bow to the sea. He leapt backwards, down into the burning gap where Silence's ram had broken. Smoke swallowed him. A heartbeat later, water roiled beneath as a half-collapsed longboat darted from the far side. Euron gripping the tiller with good hand. Davos saw his patch shimmer once before fog swallowed him. After him, someone cried, but the king raised a fist. Flames raged along Silence's splitting hull. The battle yet roared elsewhere in the harbor. They needed distance. Cut away, Davos ordered. Boarding planks shoved. Ropes severed. The Lord of Light reversed oars as Silence's deck buckled on a pillar of flame. Moments later, the dread flagship listed, then slid beneath waves with a prolonged hiss and a bloom of steam that smothered the nearest lanterns. A ragged cheer rose among Stannis' men. The Ironborn still fought, but their terror cresting with the sinking of Silence broke hearts as sure as swords. Across the harbor, raiders beached ships and fled inland toward the Vale's crags. Stannis allowed no pursuit. Victory at sea was enough. When the flagship limped to anchor beyond the smoke, Davos oversaw triage upon the main deck. Gendry lay on planks, skin crazed with red cracks, yet breathing. Shireen arrived, slipping past healers, eyes wide with grief until she saw her friend's chest rise. She pressed water to his lips. Maester Pylus worked salve. Stannis knelt beside Gendry, Lightbringer's glow low now. The Smith Lord managed a ragged grin. Hammer's gone, your grace. We will forge another, the king said, voice rough. Hotter fires await. He turned to Davos. Prepare to land. We hold Gulltown, rebuild piers. Send ravens. Kraken broken, grain lanes open. The hand saluted. though his shoulders sagged with exhaustion. Victory cost dear, and Winter's purse held more debt. Robb Stark's host reached Riverrun beneath a sky boiled red at sunset. The castle rose proud again, banners of the dire wolf and the silver trout flying together on fresh poles. Edmure met them at the drawbridge, gaunt but smiling, gray streaks lining beard. He clasped nephew's arm, then knelt before Stannis when the king dismounted. "Trout swims with stag, your grace. Tully swords are yours." Robb clasped his uncle, whispering relief. Catelyn embraced Edmure with tears. Yet joy flickered only briefly. Scouts rode in with Tywin's movements. Lions camped now at Maidenpool ruins, building siege lines, dragging scorpions. Great John growled, "We hold high ground at Riverrun. Let him break his teeth." But Reed shook his head. Tywin's mind was stone. He would skirt wide, cross Red Fork above Ruby Ford, fall upon Harrenhal and choke supply lines. Littlefinger's Sells words might open gates for coin. "We must strike before the lion hunts," Reed advised. Robb agreed. The council set to plan a night march to intercept at Acorn Hall, where River narrowed and King's Road cut south. Edmure offered river boats to flank. That night, as fires winked along ramparts, Catelyn passed the Godswood Pond, whispering names. Behind her, a shadow moved. A tall woman in battered blue armor, a sword taller than most men. Brienne of Tarth stepped forth, pulling back helm. "My lady," she said, voice broken with hunger and haste. "I have news of your daughter." Catelyn's breath caught. She followed Brienne into a lantern hut by the stables. The Maid of Tarth recounted Maidenpool. Hound captured Sansa. Brienne fought Sandor, wound upon wound. Then rising smoke and Lannister outriders splitting them apart. Sansa fled into the dunes with a septa. The Hound vanished into burning barns. Brienne held Sansa's torn cloak, blue wool charred at hem. She escaped east toward the mountains. Hope stabbed Catelyn's heart like fresh pain. "Alive!" she hissed. She gripped Brienne's mailed arm. "You will ride with me at dawn. We will find her." Robb consented, his mother's need outweighed strategy. Catelyn and Brienne rode out under half moon, escorted by 6 Crannog scouts. Behind them, the Stark Baratheon host prepared to move. Jon Snow returned to Castle Black with 40 of the 100 rangers he had led into the Frostfangs. Half-limped, 5 were carried on makeshift sleds, limbs black glassy from frostbites that no maester would save. As the survivors passed under the gate, the courtyard fell silent save the low howl of wind. Brothers stared at the injuries, at the smoldering patches of green fire clinging to torn cloaks. Marsh hurried forward, jaw tight. Jon's eyes bled exhaustion. "We shattered the Iceheart's cocoon, but not the thing inside. It reformed deeper." Wildling archers tossed bundles of empty grenade casings onto the snow. "Your magic stones burn," one muttered. "But the cold drinks fire quick." Melisandre stepped from shadow, ruby pulsing. She laid hand on Jon's arm. "Fire balked frost, but only blood quenches night." Her gaze flicked toward the rookery tower where Shireen's raven perches held scrolls. Jon pulled away, weary. "Rest," he said to his men. "We rebuild." Turning to Marsh, he ordered extra rations for the wounded. Marsh's mouth pressed thin, but after a long moment he nodded. In Lord Commander Solar, Jon unrolled Davos's latest raven.
Dragonglace shipment en route.
Fleets victorious. Yet the last line chilled him. Light dims in King's breast. He wondered what darkness that foretold. Late candles low, he wrote. Cold King reforms. We need dragonfire, not only glass. If dragons truly cross sea, parley for alliance. He hesitated, then added. Tell my sister I watch the north for her.
Cell.
He looked toward the hearth. Flames guttered, casting long shadows like claws across stone. Euron Greyjoy beached half-burned longboat on an unnamed strand beneath cliffs where pine needles blanketed the sand. His wounds wept pus. The stump wrapped in salted cloth throbbed with each heartbeat. Yet his grin endured. He knelt, scooped handful of black sand, let it slip through his fingers. Each grain glittered faintly, even beaches bled wildfire now. A gift, Behind him crept the witch priestess he thought drowned. Skin charred but living, eyes two dying coals. She whispered of visions. A fire king's sword, a dragon queen's landing, an iron chair rising from the drowned city. Euron pressed bloody palm against her lips. Silence failed me, he murmured. But I speak storms. He looked south along coastline where gulls wheeled over still smoldering hulks. Let the stag gloat. We will rise again, born of salt and smoke. 3 days out from Gulltown, Stannis anchored off Sweetport Sound. Charred hulls towed behind for repair. Burned captives tended in makeshift sickbay below. Gendry hobbled the deck, bandages stiff with salve. Shireen walked beside, reading from Lives of the Four Kings. Davos met them, offering a new smith hammer forged from a broken anchor shank. Gendry hefted it, smill. Angie through pain. He would craft larger scorpions soon. In his cabin, Stannis read reports. Tyrell pleas for naval defense, Dornish invitation, Iron Bank letters with harsher terms. He rubbed the dent in his breastplate where Euron's shot had struck. Beneath bruises, he felt a heat where Lightbringer's energy had fused flesh and iron. It hurt most in stillness. He welcomed the pain. Melisandre arrived, closing hatch softly. Your sword dims again, she said. It serves, Stannis replied. It must blaze, else night prevails. He studied her. You ask for blood. She bowed slightly. A king's blood woke fire from stone upon Dragonstone. Now darkness births a colder king than before. A sacrifice royal, pure, will bind Lightbringer in true flame. Stannis's hand clenched on quill. Not my daughter. Melisandre's eyes flicked, regretful. Shireen bears dragon's blood, old and potent. But there is other royal blood, the Wolf King's if freely given. She produced a phial of crimson sand. Azor Ahai tempered his blade in the heart of a beloved. Hard truths carve light. Begone. Stannis's voice cracked like broken timber. She left without further word. He sat alone, listening to the creak of mast and distant gulls. The map spread before him traced coasts where war still raged. He pressed fist to heart, feeling hammer beat there. Justice, duty, cost. Slowly he dipped quill, circled a new route on parchment, from Sweetport to Blackwater via Storm's End. He wrote, To Prince Doran Martell, thy spears may claim justice. Meet at Shipbreaker Bay. Then he drafted another to Jon Snow, hold wall at any cost. Dragons may answer. He signed with bleeding ink. South of the Red Fork, Tywin massed 25,000 under gold lions on Crimson Field. Caltrips littered approach to his encampment. Supply wagons rolled behind lines of pikemen. He coughed hard into silk, red speck visible. Maester Pycelle would have offered leeching, but the old maester lay cold in his marble crypt. Instead, Grand Maester Baldric, a lean man chosen by Tywin's own influence, stood by, wringing hands. A minor sickness, Lord of Casterly Rock, Baldric soothed. Tywin's eyes burned. Send ravens to Casterly and King's Landing. Bid my grandson issue edict branding Baratheon alliance traitorous. Hearts waver. He turned to Ser Kevin. We move at dawn. Cross the Red Fork before the wolves gather. Chainmail rattled as he leaned forward. Break them, and dragons will parley with lions. He knew there was little time left. For the war, for his lungs, for his family's preeminence. Death might claim him soon, but he vowed to carve legacy into stone before it did. In Dorne, Daenerys made harbor at Sunspear beneath labored cheers. Dornish spearmen lined the quay, spears reflecting dragonfire torchlight. Drogon landed atop the old Martell Tower, wings spanning across the rooftops. Prince Doran rolled his wheeled chair across sun-baked pavers to greet her, Oberyn at flank. Fire bleeds heat into our sand, Doran murmured, bowed as best his gout allowed. Oberyn grinned. I told you the song of ice and fire needed a sun as well. Dany returned bow, silver hair catching desert breeze. Within Sunspear's shaded atrium they shared pomegranates while plots ripened. Doran offered ports, soldiers, hostages to trade. Oberyn offered vengeance against lions. Dany listened, weighing motives. Her dragons circled overhead, restless. At dusk she addressed Dornish lords. I come not to burn the realm, but to free it from fear. Stannis' victories, Jon's pleas, Sansa's plight unknown to her yet. Threads of the same tapestry. She pledged to march north when her armies mustered, unsullied, Dornish, Sellsword cavalry from the disputed lands, bringing 3 dragons as shield and spear. Her words stirred the hot Dornish night. In shadows Varys, spider turned itinerant, watched and smiled, balance shifting at last. Night cloaked the wall again. Jon stood upon the platform of the great eastern tower, Longclaw leaning on shoulder, eyes scouring the tree line. Snow fell, thick as petals, until forest blurred into white indefinite. Somewhere far beyond, shards of the ice heart crept deeper, reweaving. He could almost feel cold breath exhaling from the north, testing each stone. Footsteps behind, Sam came bearing a tattered tome. "Dragons," he whispered. "This says their fire can melt stone like tallow. If Queen Daenerys brings them." Jon looked to the south horizon, no glow yet. Hope travels slower than dread, Sam. Below, free folk children laughed near a cookfire. A momentary balm. Jon squared shoulders. "Until dragons fly, we hold." He glanced into the night again. For one blink he thought he saw a blue spark flicker among snow-laden branches. It vanished, leaving only hush. At Acorn Hall, the Stark Baratheon vanguard collided with Tywin's forward scouts in a clash of steel and torchlight among budding orchards. Arrows thudded into apple trunks, blossoms fell like pale blood. Reed's Cranach surprise assault left 300 lions dead in waterlogged pits before dawn. Yet Tywin's main thrust still advanced. Great Jon returned from the skirmish, shirt-soaked. Red Lion roars loud. Robb smeared blood from cheek. Then we fight louder. He looked skyward at crows circling. Bad omen or message from beyond. He listened to them caw, and quietly asked the winds for guidance. Stannis' navy anchored at Blackwater mouth again days later. Smoke still stained city sky. The king strode onto the dock, Lightbringer dim but steady. Davos walked beside. As they entered the Red Keep gates, bells tolled. Crowds thronged streets, cheering. Others stared silent, wary of flame that marked the king. Stannis climbed steps to the throne room, where Prince Oberyn, newly arrived via secret path, met him with a mocking flourish. "Your crown sits heavier," the Viper quipped. "Weight of realm," Stannis replied. He sat the Iron Throne once more, feeling its jagged bite. Davos announced victory at Gulltown, grain restored, kraken scattered. Yet news of Tywin's march dampened mood. Stannis summoned captains. Muster city guard. Ready walls. That night Davos joined Shireen on a terrace overlooking Blackwater. She pointed beyond horizon. "Do you think dragons truly come?" "I have sailed seas," Davos murmured. "I've seen things a court would call tales. Dragons would not surprise me." He patted her scaled cheek softly. "But heroes stand even without them." Shireen nodded solemnly. "Then you and father are heroes." Davos looked outward, unsure. South winds freshened. Tyrell envoys arrived next eve. Lady Olenna, face drawn. "Kraken fire ruins vines. Lannister claws at our coasts. And your king hoards city walls. If we fall, realm starves." Stannis sat in solar, candlelight flickering on tired features. "We sail to defend your coast once Tywin is broken." Olenna set her cane hard.
Winters Roses wild fast.
"Break Tywin quickly, or your throne will sit atop a mountain of skulls with no realm to rule." She departed without bow. Stannis exhaled, rubbed the dent in his armor. Littlefinger watched all through spies. He laughed softly, juggling 2 gold coins. One minted with a stag, one with a dragon. "When they duel, I will own the purse," he whispered. In vault below Harrenhal, alchemists refined wildfire and red priests chanted, each thinking they served him alone. Yet Peter served only chaos. In the Vale's hill Sansa and a weary Septa sought a hidden path that would lead to the Ares' lower foothills. Night found them at an abandoned shepherd's hut. Sansa built a small fire with trembling hands. She stared into embers, recalling Winterfell's halls. She whispered a prayer for her mother. Unaware, Catelyn tracked less than 50 miles behind. On ridge above, Brienne scanned valley, eyes narrowing at the thin thread of smoke. The hound, wounded but alive, crouched nearby watching same smoke. Conflict warred in his gaze. Vengeance, duty, indifference. At length he rose, axe in hand, limping toward the hut. On Dragonstone, forgotten for months, storms battered empty parapets where once Melisandre birthed shadows. In the underground chamber, the black stone egg reliquary cracked anew, revealing an ancient scroll sealed in obsidian. No living hand saw the fracture, but the island shuddered as something old awoke in volcano's roots. A slow, deep rumble like molten stone rolling over bones. Far above, gulls fled the vents screeching. Back at the wall, a raven arrived at dawn, white-feathered, red-eyed. Carried no message. It perched on Jon's arm without pecking, looked into his eyes, and croaked a single jarring word, "Snow." Then it died, freezing solid in an instant, though the air was not yet that cold. Jon pried its claws free, perplexed and uneasy. Melisandre claimed it a sign. Winter's herald murdered by its own breath. As spring bled into full thaw, lines drew tight around every heart of Westeros. Lannister host encamped at Stony September. Stark spears guarded Trident crossings. Stormlander fleet prepared to sail for Arbor relief. Dornish dragons gathered heat. Ironborn lurked in Blackwater. The Iceheart knit bones of frost in hidden caverns. And among the small folk, rumors swirled. A white sword of fire, a blue king of death, a silver queen of storms. In King's Landing, Stannis at last convened war council with Oberyn, Davos, Lady Olenna, and newly arrived Ser Loras, arm in sling from fighting krakens at sea. Maps filled the table like tapestry. Stannis jabbed calloused finger. We meet Tywin on the Red Fork. Wolves north, Roses west, Stags center. Dornish strike behind. Oberyn's grin flickered. Dragons east. He unfolded a fresh raven scroll with seal of House Targaryen. It spoke of alliance, of fire and blood, of landing on Dornish coast within a fortnight. Davos felt the tides turning again. He wondered whether the realm would drown beneath their churn before they carved a new channel for peace. Shireen listened from doorway, clutching her book. She understood little of strategy, but she sensed the fear. Quietly she crept away, down to the dungeons where she kept a secret. In old alcove, a tiny cache of mice she fed each night. They squeaked at her arrival. She smiled, humming soft lullaby. Life, she thought, was small and fragile, but worth warmth. Jon Snow stood before the wall's weirwood, Longclaw planted. He addressed ranks of Night's Watch and free folk. We ride at first snowfall, he told them. North of the lakes, east of then valleys. We light every tree in our path. If the Nightheart rises, it will meet a forest of flame. Some cheered, some shook heads, but all felt resolve. Marsh said nothing, but his eyes smoldered. When darkness fell, Jon walked alone along the parapet where the white raven had died. He looked up south this time. A faint glow, distant but unmistakable, flickered just above horizon. A tongue of orange-red dancing in night sky, too bright for torch, too high for wildfire. For a heartbeat he wondered if it were sunset's remnant. But no, sun had set hours before. This was something else. Dragonfire, he whispered. Behind him, Melisandre smiled at the stars. On the high seas, Daenerys's armada cut waves under full sail, Dornish galleys leading. Drogon wheeled overhead, shrieking challenge to heaven. Below deck, Tyrion Lannister, escaped by Oberyn's artifice, pored over maps with Varys whispering schemes. Dragons and lions in the same hull. Strange bedfellows indeed. Tyrion tapped the parchment. Crippling Tywin's precious crossbows here at Stony September would turn his flanks. Varys nodded, and saw confusion for the spider's other threads. For the first time in months, Tyrion felt purpose beyond survival. In the Frostfang caves, shards of blue ice crawled across basalt, converging around a hollow heart. They formed ribs of transparent crystal, shoulders bristling frost spikes, a helm like splintered moonlight. Within that cage of ice, a pulse stirred, slow, echoing, older than men. The new king of night opened eyes black as void, rimmed with starfrost. He listened to wine telling tales of swords and fire, of dragons and kings, of walls raised in fear. He rose silent. Outside, snow began to fall thicker, and with it, the dead rose too, drawn by the beat of their creator's newborn heart. South, Jon felt cold crash through him like a spear. On the quarterdeck at Blackwater, Stannis' sword flickered, though no wind stirred. In the deserts of Dorne, Drogon screeched, banking hard as if stung. The pieces spun faster now, circling toward a storm neither sun nor sword had yet faced. Fires blazed, hearts steeled, but night gathered its own armies under banners no mortal hand had stitched. And somewhere, in the quiet gap between thunder and dawn, the realm itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see whether courage or despair would draw the next shuddering exhale. The next 5,000 word installment continues below. Pure narrative script, no subtitles, no headings. Raw wind clawed across the Blackwater as night drew its curtain, rattling the half-mended shutters of the red keep's highest rookery. Within that dim chamber, scrolls rustled like restless spirits while the ancient raven Balerion preened his soot-dark feathers above a candle guttering in its sconce. Maester Pylus, lately transplanted from Dragonstone, moved between cages with careful, limping steps, sorting ribbons by color, gold for field reports, blue for fleet, white for the wall. Now he searched for black, the mark reserved for matters of highest urgency. None remained. The last black ribbon had been tied to a scroll bound north for Jon Snow. Below the rookery, down spiraling stairs and torchlit corridors, King Stannis paced the length of the small council chamber with martial inevitability, boots thudding on cracked marble between every torch. Davos stood at the table's edge while Oberyn Martell leaned against a pillar like a desert cat feigning slumber, and Lady Olenna Tyrell tapped her cane at each pause. Steady, rhythmic, disapproving. Ser Loras, his injured arm bound, watched through narrowed eyes. "We meet Tywin where he least expects," Stannis said, voice rasping from smoke and salt. "Oxcross, wolves harry his van from Riverrun. Dornish spears strike his baggage from south. Stormlander heavy horse ride up the coast road to slam the hinge. We break his line before dragons arrive. Else lion claws at our backs while we face fire." Olenna's fan snapped open. "A lovely painting, your grace, but our gardeners prefer soil to steel. Reach levies are half-grown and ironborn still steel ships." "Ships you will have," Davos interjected, parchment in hand. "Gulltown's yards refit 20 prizes even now. Manderley crews sail them down the coast to Arbor, then on to Highgarden." Oberyn smirked. "Gulltown smolders. Tyrell vines wither, yet Dorne blooms. My raven from Sunspear claims the Dragon Queen rides for the Prince's Pass within a fortnight. 8,000 unsullied, 30,000 Dornish spears, sells word outriders, and 3 dragons." Loras straightened, pain forgotten. "If Daenerys lands at Storm's End, she must pass over my family's fields. I will not watch roses burn." His hand drifted toward empty sword belt. Stannis's gaze cut him short. "Your rose will not burn if your stem stands firm." He turned, cloak swirling. "We court the queen, not challenge her. Dragons can burn the wall's foe as easily as man." Olenna's cane struck once. "And if dragons choose lion over stag? Or heaven forbid, dragon alone?" Silence. Candle hissed. Pitch popped. Stannis faced Davos. "Dispatch riders to Sunspear. Invite Daenerys to parley here under guest right. Offer grain, ships, mines. Offer what is needed. Save throne." Davos bowed. "At once." Oberyn pushed from pillar. "I will ride to meet my niece of sorts. A viper greets a dragon. Venom stays sheathed." He smiled. "Usually." The council dispersed. Stannis lingered, staring at war map. Flickers from torches made carved rivers seem to flow. He touched the trident with gauntlet finger, then the neck, the wall. So many fronts, so little time. Night deepened over the King's Road's central stretch, where blackleaf elms formed vaults above rutted track. Beneath them Catelyn Stark and Brienne of Tarth guided mounts at a careful trot, Crannig scouts flitting ahead like shades. Hoarfrost-crusted branches, their breath fogged silver. Moonlight revealed the faint path of wagon wheels. Fry supply, too fresh to ignore. Yet these spoor were not what Catelyn sought. Her heart beat only to the hope of Sansa. They reached a low ridge. A small fire flickered in valley below, dim under a makeshift rock overhang. Catelyn pressed hand to breast to still pounding heart. Smoke! Brienne nodded, eyes narrowed. We go on foot. They tethered mounts, descended through frost-hushed bracken. Reed scouts melted left and right, bows strung. Near the overhang, two figures huddled. One tall, broad-shouldered, outlined by axe slung across back. The other smaller, seated near the flames. Flicker illuminated auburn hair. Catelyn's lungs seized. Tears blurred vision. She stepped forward. Floorboard creaked under boot. No, a twig cracked. The tall figure spun, axe gleaming moonlight. Brienne sprang, great sword singing from scabbard. Steel rang, sparks sprayed. The hound barked, 7 bloody? But Brienne battered him back. Meanwhile Catelyn rushed past, dropped to knees before the girl. Sansa jolted, eyes wide. Face hollow, smudged with soot, yet unmistakably her daughter. Catelyn caught her cheeks between trembling hands. My sweet girl, she breathed. Tears came warm despite cold. Sansa's lips quivered. She fell into her mother's embrace. Clash behind ceased. Brienne stepped back, sword point resting. Sandor Clegane, perspiring, lowered axe. Enough, he growled. I kept the little bird alive. That earns safe road. Brienne glanced to Catelyn. The lady nodded. You have my thanks, sir. Not sir. He spat aside. I ride south. No coin, no cause. He slung axe, turned. Crannogmen parted warily. Brienne watched until his shadow merged with tree silhouettes. Under the overhang, Catelyn wrapped cloak round Sansa. We ride home. Sansa shivered. Arya. Pain flicked across Catelyn's gaze. Missing still. She pressed forehead to Sansa's. But one star returns. They broke camp before dawn, torches screened. On ridge, first rays brushed faces pale with relief and resolve. Brienne led, sword ready. Behind, Sansa leaned against her mother, eyes finally holding spark of hope. Beyond the narrow sea, Daenerys's column approached the plateau of the Prince's Pass, where sand gave way to rugged red rock. Dawn painted crags like molten gold. In the distance, Boneway forts unfurled Dornish banners. Red suns on orange field, crowned by spears poised. Above, Drogon's sword. Regal and Viserion wheeled further back, casting shifting shadows over scarlet dunes. Dorne's prince awaited in a litter shaded by silken canopy. Dornish spearmen parted ranks as Daenerys rode up on silver mare. Doran Martell inclined his head. Oberyn dismounted beside him, surfaced from dust swirl with grin. Blood of old Valyria, Doran greeted. Dorne is honored. Fire honors sand, Dany replied. She swung down. Unsullied formed silent cordon, shields immaculate. Dario Naharis toyed with a rack hilt, slack grin. Within the canvas hall erected on site, they spread parchments. Doran offered ports, Oberyn offered spears. Daenerys offered dragons in return for open road to King's Landing and recognition of her claim. Doran signed with trembling hand. Later that night, Dany climbed a dune beyond camp. Drogon settled beside, wings tucked. She looked west. Flicker of city fires faint on horizon. Soon, she whispered in high Valyrian. Drogon rumbled, nostrils steaming. Tywin Lannister's host reached the crossroads north of Acorn Hall under overcast afternoon. Scouts reported Stark outriders harassing supply lines. Dornish light horse sighted 2 leagues south. Tywin dismounted stiffly, coughed thick blood into kerchief, studied red flecks. Kevin saw, face pale. You must rest. Tywin wiped mouth. After victory, he ordered trenches dug, palisade stakes, siege engines unlimbered to guard baggage. We bait the wolf. At dusk, horns blared, crippled outriders stumbled in, chased by gray-cloaked cavalry. Stark van advanced swiftly. Tywin smiled thin. Signal the Golden Company. Across Camp Ridge, banners of the Black Goat of Qohor topped with golden lion heads rose. 5,000 sellswords newly bought with Braavosi loan. They bristled spears as dark as slaughter. Tywin's trap waited sprung. Deep in Harrenhal's bowels, wildfire casks stacked like dragon eggs hummed faintly. Littlefinger descended torch in hand, counting barrels. A scribe followed with ledger. Enough to drown a host, Peter mused. We shall see whose flames burn brightest. Kings, krakens, or dragons. A distant boom rumbled overhead, thunder or siege test. Littlefinger smiled, lips thin like parchment, eyes on green flicker dancing within glass. Chaos, he whispered, is opportunity. At White Harbor's docks, merchants loaded last scorpion bolts onto Manderley caravel. Shireen waved from quay as Dale Seaworth checked manifests. Gendry limped along, supervising rigging modifications. Suddenly horns blared, 3 long blasts. Sailors froze. A patrol skiff raced to harbor mouth, trailing pennant. Sails east. Spectators rushed piers. In dawn haze, they glimpsed 3 war dramans bearing sigils of the Crownlands. Badly scorched, limp sails, oars uneven. Flagship hoisted black-bordered white cloth. Plague. Harbor officials balked. Yet before orders issued, 1 dramand ran aground in shallows. Crew collapsed across deck. Skin pale, lips blue, eyes glassy. Dale leapt aboard with healers. They found men raving of black storms north of Dragonstone, of flames surging from sea vents. The mountain woke, one muttered before dying. Below deck, sailors lay frozen stiff though hull timber warm. Something cold had traveled in them. Word raced by Raven to Stannis and Davos. Dragonstone's wound, whatever had cracked the reliquary, now birthed death at sea. Another front opened. On the wall, John Vigil ended as Ivory Horn across yard sounded 1 blast. Messenger from Eastwatch arrived. Dragonglass convoy sighted off Skago Straits, escorting Manderley galleys. Relief rippled. Yet before cheer took hold, second horn, 2 blasts from North Rung. Wildlings returning. No, Scout returned alone. Frostbitten. Raving. The dead marched again, hosts larger, led by a tall figure in mirror armor who turned flame to steam with a gesture. John steeled. Rally. He climbed to top, scanned white expanse. On far horizon a dark line crawled. Too soon. Fire signals, he ordered. Summon all. Bowen Marsh protested. Dragonglass not here yet. We cannot hold. We must. Longclaw gleamed. Or no grain convoy matters. Flames leapt on beacon towers. Ravens rose like black snowflakes, winging toward south realms. One carried message simple as doom. The Night King marches. In King's Landing, Stannis received Raven. Chamber seemed to grow colder. Oberyn read message aloud. Olenna paled. Stannis closed eyes. We march at dawn, he said. Tywin's trap waits, but realm dies if we delay. Davos frowned. If we abandon city walls, Tyrell fleet remains vulnerable. We split, Stannis decided. Hand commands Blackwater defense with Queen Daenerys when she arrives. I ride north with heavy horse. Link with Robb. He turned to Oberyn. You ride to Dragonstone. Learn what evil brews beneath volcano. Take Maester Pylus, Gendry if fit. The Viper saluted with flourish. Night fell. Stannis visited Shireen's chamber. She slept curled with her cat doll. He brushed hair from scarred cheek, heart twisting. He whispered farewell, though lips made no sound. At Stony September, Tywin scouts seized a parchment delivered by sparrow preachers. Daenerys's dragons landed in Dorne. Tywin eyed the script long. "We move tonight," he commanded. "Strike Robb while he forms. Victory here forces Dragon to our walls, not north." He coughed, blood heavy. Still he mounted. Yet Peter's spies reached Robb first. Reed's scouts diverted Golden Company guides into swampy detour. Mercenaries bogged in mire lost hours. Under moonless sky, Stark and Baratheon cavalry crashed into Tywin's van across Whispering Wood, an echo of earlier war. Gretchen's howl echoed as wolf-shed banners swept through startled lines. Tywin's chest seized. He tasted iron. His guard hustled him back as arrows hissed. Umber axes split helm after helm. Clegane's rearguard held passes long enough for retreat. Noise of dying men filled trees. When dawn broke crimson, battlefield lay strewn with gold-cloaked corpses. Robb rode among, gray wind limping from cut yet alive. Edmure found a lion banner trampled, a purse of Braavosi coins spilled. "Sel's words broke," he said with grim satisfaction. Tywin regrouped south of Maidenpool, but fever seized him. He shivered under lion cloak. "Send for my son," he rasped. "Tell Tyrion, I need him." Kevin grimaced. Ravens dispatched, though roads unsafe. On Dragonstone's smoking ridge, Oberyn Martell surveyed fissures venting azure flames. Gendry beside him felt heat roll though winter winds howled. Maester Pylus studied the cracked reliquary whose scroll still glimmered. Runes etched therein read of Valyrian seed quenched by winter's breath. Prophecy older than conquest, warning of mingled fire and ice birthing death. Oberyn grinned. "So the mountain births frost. Let us lance this boil." They descended into old tunnels where black stone walls glowed faint. In central chamber, obsidian statues of long-dead dragons loomed. At its heart, a pit where molten rock bubbled, yet a top crust formed a chalky rime. Within lay a crystal akin to those Jon shattered, pulsing blue. Throbbed, cracking stone. Gendry hefted new hammer, inscribed with runes. He lifted. Oberyn readied spear tip coated in scorpion venom. Pylus murmured prayers. They struck together. The crystal exploded in soundless flash. Shockwave hurled them back. Chamber roof cracked. Ash plumed. In the harbor, ships rocked as Dragonstone's peak belched column of smoke laced with frost shards that rained onto deck. Sizzling hot, then flash freezing where they landed. Smoke of that eruption reached Sunspear by Raven same night. Daenerys convened war council. Tyrion argued cunning. Ally with Stannis now, slay Night King together, then claim throne. Yora warned duplicity. Dany listened. Dragons roared restlessly. She ordered letters. One to Stannis promising alliance in war against dead. One to Jon Snow offering Dragonfire aid. Then she mounted Drogon. Flew above desert moonlit, screams of wind in ears. She questioned whether thrones mattered when cold oblivion marched. At the wall, frost wind whistled through arrow slits. Jon Snow stood on balcony outside Maester's tower as first obsidian wagons arrived. He greeted driver, pulling tarp. Dragonglass blades, arrowheads, spear tips, black and deadly. Horn blasts echoed 1, 2, then 3. The dead. They came sooner than expected. Jon ordered the gates barred. Archers knocked new arrows. Melisandre raised hands. Ruby flared. Flame trenches lit along base of wall, but wind blew sparks sideways. From Treeline emerged ranks of corpses, eyes blue. At their head rode the ice-armored Night King. He lifted Frost's spear. Flames guttered, died. Gasps from men. Jon descended rope ladder onto courtyard as wall shuddered from unseen force. Ice creeping up stones, freezing mortar. He addressed men. Dragonglass only. Aim for hearts. Free folk howled war cries. Tormund lifted axe. Snow began again. Thick, relentless. Battle joined. At King's Landing's parapet Stannis felt sword blaze bright. Miles away Jon swung Longclaw into Undead Skull. Daenerys streaked northward on Dragonback. Tywin coughed final blood in Fever Tent. Catelyn rode with Sansa toward Riverrun. Littlefinger lit first of wildfire fuses beneath Harrenhal's southern tower, watching green flames dance. Across continent, Hearts beat to drum of war. Some for glory, some for vengeance, some for love. Above them all, stars hid behind gathering clouds, and a moon pale as bone watched without judgment. The tale's fires raged hotter, yet winter's breath grew colder still, billowing toward every hearth. And in that widening gulf between flame and frost, the fate of kingdoms balanced, quivering, awaiting the next inevitable fall of the sword. Gray dawn seeped across the Blackwater like watered ink, smothering the torches along the quay in a cold pallor far older than the river itself. From the red keep's ramparts the city looked hushed, almost expectant. Gulls drifting over broken spires, distant bells clanging a slow, uneasy rhythm. Small folk huddled in doorways staring north as though judgment might stroll through the gates by mid-morning. Wind carried snowflakes, soft, improbable sparks that melted before they touched the cobbles. Borne all the way from Storm's End on a gale born of mingled sea and sleet. Winter, it seemed, had chosen to ignore the almanacs. It marched where it pleased. Within Maegor's holdfast Stannis Baratheon donned black half-plate begrimed by ash. The dent in the breast rehammered but still visible, a reminder etched in iron. Lightbringer leaned against the map table, its ember almost invisible in the yellow flush of lanterns. There was no council. Only Davos remained, hands folded before the roll of parchment containing Stannis's orders. The hand's beard showed new streaks of gray since Gulltown, and fatigue clung like cobwebs to the slash above his brow. Still he met his king's gaze, waiting. Stannis sealed the final missive with crimson wax. Send copies to Riverrun, to Winterfell, to Sunspear. The realm must know. Dragons have crossed, Tywin falters, but the Night King rises. Grain transports continue. The city holds. You hold it. Davos nodded, voice rough. I'll keep walls tight and harbor clear. But if Tyrell fleet fails, breakers will not breach while your ships guard these waters, Stannis said. And the Dragon Queen will answer the coast before roses wither. He paused, jaw clenching. Treat her with respect. Yet remember, she is not yet queen here. Boots on flagstones signaled Princess Shireen approaching. She bore an oiled canvas satchel and a shy smile. Father, she said, I copied the Valyrian text you asked. It speaks of dragonglass and other things. She fumbled the satchel open, produced brittle pages crowded with runes. Stannis softened. You have done well. He brushed her hair with a gloved hand, careful of scales. Stay with Davos till my return. Obey Maester Pylus. She nodded, brave though eyes brimmed. Davos bowed to her, motioned gently toward the corridor. They left Stannis alone with the sword and silence. He buckled Lightbringer across back, felt its warmth seep through leather. From a window he glimpsed banners readying in the yard. Crowned stag, dire wolf, red sunspear, silver triskele. An unlikely bouquet bound by frost and fire. Somewhere below, Dornish outriders watered horses beside Northman Garrons. Gray cloaks mingled with orange veils. Desperate times, desperate cloth. A horn blared. Hooves clattered on cobbles. Stannis descended and mounted Shadowfax, helm under arm. Davos met his stirrup. Gods guard you, your grace. Duty guards me, Stannis replied. He wheeled, leading the vanguard through the gate of the gods toward Riverland's silt roads. 2,000 Stormlander lances at heel, 600 Dornish spears under Ser Archibald Ironwood, a knot of Northman outriders under Galbart Glover, the tip of a spear aimed at Tywin's weakening heart. They vanished beyond the city walls as snow began again. Sunspear's eastern court filled with trumpet calls when word of the king's march arrived. Daenerys stood among orange trees, parchment still warm from Raven's leg. The Fire King rides north, she murmured. Doran Martell read over shoulder. Stannis seeks to fall on the lion before the snows bury him. And invites me to council in King's Landing, Dany finished. She looked to Tyrion, perched upon a low wall, wine skin in hand. Would your father parley now? He's dying, Tyrion replied. He'll cling to spite before reason. But his armies bleed, the trap tightens. Dario laughed. If lions limp and stags leave city, Dragon Queen need only sweep up ashes. Not ashes, Dany said sharply. People. She gazed northward, vision filled with frost and ruin. Prepare half the unsullied, Carthan trebuchets and one dragon. Regal will guard Dorne. Viserion accompanies galleys along coast. Drogon and I fly to Storm's End. Test the king's hospitality. Tyrion raised brow. You'll risk parley with a man famed for grim resolve? I will risk anything, she answered. To face the Night King with united flame. She stroked Drogon's snout where he nudged shoulder, scenting tension. And if Stannis refuses, then the city's stone melts like cheese, Dario finished, grinning. Dany smiled thin, mounted saddle. Sands shrieked as wings unfurled. Drogon leapt skyward, casting dusk-long shadow across water. Far north, the wall howled as a storm of ice and bone crashed its foot. Jon Snow's arrow lodged in a white's eye socket, dragonglass tip puffing blue flame that devoured skull. Body collapsed to shards. All along the parapet brothers loosed black-fletched shafts while free folk hurled fire pots. Yet the dead surged, hundreds, then thousands. A tide of gray flesh clambering over frozen corpses to reach ice. The Night King strode among them, frost spear raised. With casual grace he flung it. The spear punched through a flame basket atop the battlement. Fire quenched, sending black smoke curling. Stannis's beacon line staggered. More pitch, Jon barked. Bowen Marsh dragged barrels. Tormund heaved one over the edge, smashing among dead, green fire blossoming. Heat licked wind, but snow smothered sparks quickly. In courtyard Melisandre chanted, hurling handfuls of ruby powder onto coals. A flare of red light spiraled up the wall face, forming a curtain of shimmering heat. For a breath the dead reeled, frost steaming. But the Night King raised arms. Cold pulsed, crystals crackled along the wall, creeping under the red veil. Fire dimmed to embers. Jon saw it fail. He turned to Gren. Sound the call. 3 blasts echoed sky. Survival meant retreat. Up spiral stair to the top where scorpions waited. Dozens clambered. Jon led, longclaw slicing. Snow-stung eyes. On summit he saw the full host. A river of corpses in moonlight, stretching to Treeline. Yet narrow focus kept terror at bay. Light the barrels, he told Dolorous Ed. Scorpions loaded with glass bolts swiveled. Then a roar tore sky apart. Fiery, deafening. A shape plunged from cloud, wings fanning blue twilight. Dragon flame erupted, crimson and gold, bathing ground in expanding bloom that incinerated 1,000 dead. Drogon thundered overhead, Daenerys astride, silver hair whipped by wind. Close behind sword Viserion, pale gold sheets of fire scorching snow. The dead burned, bodies crumbled to ash. Jon stared, disbelief cracking iron calm. Tormund whooped, brothers cheered. Yet the Night King lifted hand. Out of icy soil rose pillars of frost that climbed like vines, shielding ranks behind glittering bulwark. Dragonfire splashed across, steam exploded, but ice endured, reforming. Drogon wheeled, made another pass, breath blazing. Some ice melted. More sprang anew. Dany circled, scanning wall. She saw Jon. Recognition dawned. She banked Drogon toward rampart. Viserion covered, flaming lines. Drogon settled heavily upon parapet stones, claws gouging. Jon met Dany's eyes across swirl of smoke. North needs fire, he called. Voice barely carried. I bring 3, she answered. Her gaze flicked to Night King. But not enough alone. Jon's hair whipped. Stannis marches. Robb holds river. We must hold here. She nodded. Aim me. Jon pointed to central, not where Night King stood behind ice curtain. Drogon leapt, sword. Jon turned back. Night King now cold, gazing up at the dragon. At his gesture, spears of frozen air formed and launched. One slashed Drogon's flank. Dragon roared, veering. Dany clung, urging climb. Second spear clipped left wing. Jon's heart froze as Drogon tumbled. Righted, but bled blue frost from wound. He spiraled south, toward Queen's Crown Forest, leaving trail of steam. Viserion dove to cover Dany's retreat. Jon snapped back to battle, dead again surging. Yet hope renewed. He rallied defenders, shouting orders for volley timing with Viserion's passes. Hours stretched. Dawn's gray-kissed horizon as Night King's host withdrew, harried by dragonflame. Corpses littered slope. Smoke rose. Jon slumped by Merlin, exhaustion heavy. Yet wall stood. Brothers alive. Victory hard won. But Drogon's wound bled frost. Unknown toll. Across the neck, Stannis' cavalry thundered through frozen fords south of Moat Cailin. Snow thickened. Scouts brought word. Tywin's rearguard in full retreat to King's Landing. Stannis frowned. Tywin would never relinquish field unless close to death. Good. Lion wounded. He spied Torchline along Treeline, Robb's outriders. Kings converged at an old ruin. September. Robb swung down, clasped Stannis' arm. Tywin broken, Robb reported. Golden Company half lost in marsh. Your plan held. Stannis nodded. Now North calls louder. Drogon wounded but alive. Night King struck. He told of dragon at wall. Robb's face paled. We ride north. You keep river guard evac routes. I break south road so Tywin cannot shadow. Then return north through Maiden's Pass with dragon host. They parted, each burdened. Tywin lay swathed in furs within war camp turned hospice. Fever glazed eyes. Kevin brought letter. Ravens from Cersei's household guard at the wall begging help for children. Tywin's hand trembled. He could not read. He whispered, Jaime, where? Kevin's throat tightened. Marching from Casterly. 2 weeks. Too late, Tywin murmured. He coughed deep, crimson froth. He waved Kevin close. The throne's gold, within September, under block. Then breath rattled, ceased. Tywin Lannister, Lord of the West, passed into silent night. Kevin wiped tears. Outside, banners lowered, horns wailed, messages sped. Lion dead. At Harrenhal, wildfire stores glowed brighter. Littlefinger received news of Tywin's death. He closed ledger softly, whispered, The world just grew cheaper. He ordered extra guards on Wildfire Vault, Quill scribing new offers to both Stannis and Daenerys. Supply lines, coin, neutrality for titles. Chaos soared. Drogon lay among hot springs south of Queen's Crown, steam rising from wounds. Dany stroked scorched scales, tears streaking soot on cheeks. Yora knelt, assessing black frost crystallized around gash. He lives, he said. But ice lingers. Tyrion arrived, all replaced by calculation. If frost survives Dragonfire, we face peril deeper than wildfire can answer. Dario unsheathed a dagger, flicked ice flake from scale. We kill the ice demon. Dany stood. Not without unity. She penned Raven. Night King repelled at great cost. Dra. Gon's wounded. We must forge Iron Alliance, stag, wolf, dragon. She sealed with wax of three-headed seal. In King's Landing, Davos received letter from Maester Aemon at Eastwatch. Convoy delayed by storms. Dragonglass lost in wreck, but salvage underway. His heart sank, yet he worked. He met with Olenna and Tyrion, arrived under guard of Dornish chaperone. They devised defense, wildfire bombs on city walls, secret tunnels for evacuation, beacon system for dragon approach. Tyrion smirked. You keep me prisoner yet seek my mind? Davos sighed. We need every mind. Tyrion toasted. To unlikely chairs at the table. Oberyn Martell left Dragonstone chambers, eyes watering from sulfur. The pit no longer pulsed, crystal shattered, frost dead. Yet veins of blue ice still threaded basalt. Hylas theorized deeper roots. Gendry hammered sign warning entrance closed. Oberyn sailed back aboard Sand Serpent with fragment of blue crystal sealed in lead box. He mused what Dragon Queen might pay for such knowledge. On the wall, Jon limped across courtyard inspecting wounded. Melisandre approached. The king beyond the night bleeds not. Fire alone delays. Only sacrifice shatters. Jon's voice raw. No children. She cocked head. A king's child already bears shadows in blood. He recalled Shireen's face. Shuddered. He turned away. Moments later cry rose from Maester Tower. Raven from Stannis. Marching north. Hold.
Dragon alliance forming.
Relief trembled in Jon's chest. He penned reply. Wall holds. Barely. Need dragonfire, dragonglass, unity. He attached to Black Raven. Watched it disappear into white sky. Catelyn and Sansa arrived Riverrun to thunderous cheers. Robb embraced sister. Tears unashamed. Catelyn looked west, where smoke from stony September still drifted. She knew battle not done. But for one night Great Hall rang with laughter. Edmure proposed marriage of Sansa to Harold Harding for Vale alliance. Sansa flinched. Catelyn shook head. Let her heart breathe. In the neck, Howland Reed's Greenseers felt tremor of Tywin's death and Night King's surge. They danced burning reeds in bog, sending dream songs to Bran wherever he roamed. Owls carried whispers south. Raven Prince must fly, somewhere beyond seas of leaves. A boy under tree opened eyes white as snow and wept sap tears. Stannis's column reached Queen's Crown Springs at dawn, finding Dany's encampment. Tension thickened as the king rode beneath Dragon's perch. Dany stepped forward in scorched leather, Drogon watching with smoldering eyes. Stannis dismounted. Your dragon saved the wall. Your sword saved Gulltown. She inclined head. The world shrinks. He offered gauntlet. After heartbeat she clasped. Heat and warmth met. We face the Night King together, Stannis declared. Then after we speak of thrones, Dany replied. So began the Pact of Queen's Crown. Stag and dragon sworn to shield realm with wolf as witness. Messengers sped. On a cliff overlooking crackling surf, by flicker of lone beacon, Littlefinger smiled as new ravens flew overhead. He rolled wildfire fused between finger and thumb. All pieces drawn, he mused. Soon the board overturns. Wind shifted. Fuse lit faintly green. He snuffed it, laughter lost to gale. Under the wall that night, ice cracked. Night King raised arms. From forest edge lumbered something vast. A giant white, skin gone, bones rimed. Behind, legions of death gathered anew. But above the forest firelight blossomed. Silver and orange dragons circling, ridden by Dornish spear banners and black-cloaked riders bearing dragonglass javelins. Stannis's heavy horse thundered along King's Road behind them. Robb's North Army closed from west. Davos's convoys neared with supplies. For first time in living memory, North sky glowed with living fire, not death. Jon atop parapet felt hope ignite. He lifted Longclaw, white flame mirrored in blade. Battle dawned again, but not alone. Far south, in silent crypt under September of Baelor, Tywin's sealed vault cracked as tremor shook city foundations. Wildfire jars rattled. The realm stood on edge of knife. Fire below, ice above, men between. Some prayed to old gods, some to new, some to none. But the snows kept falling, the dragons kept burning, and hearts kept beating, each pulse a stubborn claim against oblivion.